Chapter 2168. As a criminal who entered the blood prison, Yi Shiwen's treatment naturally couldn't be compared with others. He was sealed. This seal was in conflict with the enchantment at the exit of the blood prison. Once he wanted to come out, he would be detected immediately. This seal would only last for 5 years. After 5 years, it would disappear. This was also a way to prevent prisoners from escaping in the blood prison. Apart from that, this seal didn't have much effect. Of course, there were some people who had committed heinous crimes and had been captured and suppressed here. Their seals wouldn't disappear automatically in 5 years like Yi Shiwen's. Yi Shiwen judged that it was likely that the blood prison was the space fragment that fell out of the blood prison back then. This was very likely. Otherwise, the two wouldn't give Yi Shiwen the feeling that they came from the same source. However, he didn't stop and directly rushed into the blood prison. After a while, he disappeared in the vast and endless blood prison. He has already entered the blood prison? Yao Xingqing received the news that Yi Shiwen had entered the blood prison when he was only a few 100,000 miles away from the blood prison. Yao Xingqing's face turned ugly, and a murderous aura filled his face. He looked abnormally hideous and terrifying. Disperse, everyone. We must find him and kill him. We can't let him continue to grow like this, said Yao Xingqing. Next to him, Jing Tianlei, who arrived together with him, also had an ugly expression. He said, "Let's go. We must not let him go. Otherwise, who knows what he will grow into after 5 years." In the distance, there was a blood-red mountain range. It was endless, as if everything was covered with a layer of blood. There was a large area of blood everywhere. Many powerful blood beasts were lurking in this huge space. It made Yi Shiwen feel like he had returned to the time when he just ventured into the blood prison. Although the distance was not too far, things had changed. His strength was also 100 times, 1,000 times stronger than before. Hee, another foreign creature has come to die. Eat him. I want to eat him. Such a powerful vitality. If I eat him, I can go further. As soon as Yi Shiwen entered the blood prison, he immediately attracted the covetous eyes of countless blood beasts. It was a scene of demons dancing wildly. Ordinary people would have a heart attack if they saw it. It was extremely terrifying. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid in the slightest. He sneered and said, "You're just a bunch of trash. Do you really think that you can covet me?" His huge hands suddenly grabbed at the void space. Boundless power tore the sky apart, instantly collapsing a part of the void space. Within it, densely packed blood demons were revealed. There were tens of thousands of them, and they were innumerable. It was terrifying. Capture them all. He grabbed thousands of blood demons and crushed them. The blood demons that were still coveting Yi Shiwen's lifeblood were instantly grabbed to death by him. Many of them were mythical blood demons. In Yi Shiwen's eyes, there was no difference. They were all clawed to death. The blood chi in the sky transformed into a long river and directly poured into his body. He suddenly burst into laughter. This feeling was too carefree. As he expected, the blood prison was indeed related to the blood prison. The blood chi in the sky was not ordinary. It was all blood essence, and it seemed that it was not ordinary blood essence. These blood demons were probably monsters that were born from the blood essence over a long period of time. According to the method in the blood prison, a large number of bloodstones could be condensed. However, the bloodstones condensed in the blood prison were many times more advanced than those in the blood prison. After these blood demons were crushed on the spot, almost all of them could be digested. There was no other consumption at all. These blood demons were born with blood essence. They were born with incomparably pure energy. In addition, they also absorbed the purest blood-colored energy for their cultivation. There was not much impurities at all. After these tens of thousands of blood demons were devoured by him and directly dissolved by the art of conversion technique, he could feel that his cultivation had risen by a level almost instantly. This was much faster than the speed at which he absorbed all the spiritual energy in the sky and transformed it into cultivation. He had just entered the 7th level of Paoang realm. It was equivalent to a pool that had just been expanded. However, there was not that much water. No matter how many came, he would not reject them. The more that came, the faster his cultivation improved. He was simply laughing maniacally. In this place, he was like a fish in water. For others, even if they could really absorb it, they would not be able to absorb it so crazily. He had the art of conversion technique as a foundation, so he could swallow as much as he wanted. As long as his body could withstand it, it did not matter. However, his physical body was the gilded tyrant form, which was incomparably tyrannical. There was no need to worry about this problem at all. As long as he continued to devour the blood-colored energy, it would only be a matter of time before he reached the peak of the 7th level of Pawang Realm. As long as he reached the peak of the 7th level of Pawang Realm, he would be able to contend with Yao Xingqing and the others. However, he was not anxious. 5 years was a long time. He still had to condense his Blade Dao incarnation. When that time came, he would be invincible and crush them in minutes. His eyes were incomparably deep. Just you wait. The next time he appeared, he would shock the world. Regardless of whether it was Yao Xingqing, Jing Tianlei, or the Divine Union leader and the others, he had to get rid of all of them. Considering his current speed, if he wanted to congeal more bloodstones, he would have to spend all day to congeal them, and he would only be able to congeal about 100. However, he had the Blood Realm heart, which was born from the will of the entire Blood Realm. Although the Blood Realm core couldn't control the entire world in the Blood Prison like it could in the Blood Realm, there were many more wonderful uses for it. Other things aside, he only needed to give it a try to discover that he could automatically condense bloodstones at any time by using the Blood Realm core. He could condense 1,000 bloodstones in a day. That was 10 times his own efficiency. Based on this efficiency, it would only be a matter of time before he accumulated enough wealth to rival a nation. What was even more amazing was that he discovered that the Blood Realm core could actually transform the blood essence of those blood demons into bloodstones. Compared to this discovery, the 10 times increase in refining efficiency was nothing. Wouldn't he be able to condense as many bloodstones as he wanted? It could simply be said that he was rich enough to rival a nation. Although he still needed these bloodstones to speed up his cultivation, he would one day be full. When that time came, these bloodstones would be wasted if he didn't use them. Now that he had the Blood Realm core, he could transform them all into bloodstones. Just like in the Blood Realm, bloodstones were a hard currency in the Blood Prison. Even if they were sold, they would still be priceless. This was because they could be swallowed directly to increase one's cultivation. Hence, there was no need to worry about selling them. Although they definitely couldn't be as precious as the God Source, they were still far more valuable than the mysterious core. Yi Shiwen started killing once again. This time, all the blood demons in the vicinity were out of luck. They were all crushed by Yi Shiwen. After some experiments, he discovered that the blood demons could condense into different bloodstones depending on their level. Ordinary blood demons below the myth realm could only condense into one bloodstone, even if there were 100 of them. Blood demons above the myth realm could condense into one bloodstone. The higher the level, the more bloodstones could be condensed. He went on a killing spree and killed all the blood demons within a radius of 100 miles. As a result, he had more than 1,000 bloodstones in his possession. It was equivalent to the 9th level of Pawang Realm that could condense a bloodstone without eating or drinking for 10 days. However, Pawang Realm experts did not have the time to condense bloodstones every day. Therefore, although they could condense bloodstones out of thin air, it should not be a big source. From what he learned from Elder Kong before he came in, most of the bloodstones in the Blood Prison came from the Bloodstone Mine. However, those bloodstone mines were scattered everywhere in the Blood Prison. They had long been divided by the major forces in the Blood Prison. It was impossible for ordinary people to obtain them. Yi Shiwen was the only one who refined the bloodstone with the heart of the Blood Realm. In addition, Yi Shiwen also discovered that holding the heart of the Blood Realm was almost like holding the Heaven Dao of the Blood Prison. He could easily enter the realm of the unity of heaven and man. His cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. If he wanted to hide, no one could find him. With this ability, he did not care about Yao Xingqing and the others' pursuit. If they had the ability, they would find him first. Using the ability of the heart of the Blood Realm, Yi Shiwen easily disguised himself as a middle-aged man. His restraining breath technique was practiced to the point of perfection. Coupled with the concealment of the heart of the blood realm, he looked no different from ordinary people. Even if Yao Xingqing personally walked in front of him, it would be impossible for him to recognize him. In the blood prison, it was simply successful in every endeavor. With his heart of the blood realm, he could avoid a lot of trouble in the next 5 years. He could even avoid a lot of trouble in the future. In the depths of the blood prison, there were powerful demons who had already proved their Tao. He had decided to disguise himself as another person. However, to disguise himself, he must not reveal any flaws. His martial arts must also be brand new. However, what martial arts did he not reveal now? But these were not a problem. With his current martial arts attainments, he could create a strong martial art in minutes. It was enough to deceive people on normal days. While he was still thinking, he had arrived at the first stronghold in the blood prison. It was a small fortress. The entire fortress was surrounded by countless arrays, revealing a dangerous atmosphere. There were many such small fortresses in the blood prison. They were built by many people who wandered in the blood prison. In the blood prison, there were many experts in the third and second areas. There were also many experts who had reached the age and could not stay in the third area. They paid a huge price to stay. Chapter 2169. The price they had to pay was to hand over a certain number of bloodstones to the deification abyss every once in a while. The higher the strength, the more bloodstones needed to be handed over. Otherwise, they would not be allowed to stay at all. It was unimaginable how many bloodstones the deification abyss could collect over time. No wonder they could gather all kinds of geniuses from all over the world and train them. Such financial and material resources were simply unimaginable to Yi Shiwen in the past. He guessed that there was probably more than one Tao-confirming expert in the deification abyss, and they were all experts. Otherwise, how could such a huge amount of wealth not attract the greed of countless people? But at present, these had nothing to do with him. Anyway, as long as he was still within 100 years, he did not have to worry about being kicked out, and he did not need to hand over bloodstones. Because of this, in the blood prison, all kinds of competitions were extremely cruel. Everyone wanted to continue to stay here, to cultivate. Staying here to cultivate, the possibility of eventually being able to prove one's Tao was much higher than staying outside. Leaving here, the possibility of proving one's Tao outside could be said to be as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Even in the Xin world, there were only a few who had been proven to have proven their Tao in the past tens of thousands of years. In many worlds, no one had proven their Tao for tens of thousands of years. One could imagine the gap between them, but he was not worried. With his current trial, ordinary experts who had just entered the 9th level of Paoang realm were not his opponents. Even if he encountered Yao Xingqing and the others, he would be able to protect himself. There was nothing to worry about. Unless he went too deep into the blood prison and encountered a powerful expert of the Tao-confirming level. As he thought about it, he had already arrived at the entrance of the fortress. Suddenly, the formation at the entrance of the fortress was activated, illuminating him from top to bottom. Yi Shiwen knew that this was to prevent Blood Demon from impersonating a human to enter. At this level of cultivation, it was a simple thing to change one's appearance, but the essence of the Blood Demon would not change. But Yi Shiwen was not a Blood Demon, so naturally, he did not have to worry. He easily passed the test of the formation at the entrance and went straight inside. However, he was stopped before he could go too deep. An expert cupped his fists and said, "Sir, if you want to stay in our sky-bearing castle, you have to pay 2 bloodstones a day." Yi Shiwen was secretly speechless. Ordinary people could only condense 10 bloodstones in a day, but to live in this place required 2 bloodstones. It was indeed expensive, but it was nothing for him. Now, he had more than 1,000 bloodstones on him, so these 2 bloodstones were just a trivial matter. Without hesitation, he handed over 2 pieces. That man let Yi Shiwen pass, and then said, "When the time comes, you can come to pay every day, or you can pay a certain amount in one go." Yi Shiwen thought for a moment and handed over 10 bloodstones and told him not to bother him for a few days. This was the norm in the blood prison. One should know that the most terrifying thing in the blood prison was the endless number of blood demons. No one knew how many blood demons there were in the entire blood prison. No one knew how many blood demons there were. No matter how many blood demons were killed, it was impossible to kill them all. They were born with the blood essence of the entire world. Unless the blood essence that filled the sky was consumed, there would be no day that they would dissipate. There were many blood demons, and there were many powerful mythical level blood demons among them. There were even blood demons that had achieved Tao. Each of these blood demons was extremely powerful. They often appeared everywhere, and these foreign experts did not even have a foothold in the blood prison. They did not even have a place to cultivate in peace. Therefore, under such circumstances, such fortresses appeared. These fortresses provided shelter for these foreign experts, and there were also many powerful formations inside. Ordinary blood demons could not break through such fortresses. However, to provide shelter for them, they naturally had to pay the price, which was to hand over enough bloodstones. Behind each fortress was a powerful expert. In fact, in the deeper parts of the blood world, there were not only fortresses, but also powerful cities. The city lords were also extremely powerful experts. In order to obtain a foothold, even these foreign experts were willing to spend 2 bloodstones in exchange for a period of peace. Seeing that Yi Shiwen could casually throw out 10 bloodstones, the way that the person looked at Yi Shiwen changed immediately. Even if the person in front of him was not a local tyrant, he was at least well off. It was much better than those poor people. Although those low-level, mythical-level experts also had a lot of wealth, no one in the blood prison wanted that wealth in the outside world. They could only exchange it for bloodstones to circulate freely. In this place, bloodstones were everything. This was because bloodstones could accelerate cultivation and deepen cultivation. What kind of treasure could be compared to bloodstones? He walked all the way in. Although it was a fortress, it was equivalent to a small town. At a glance, although there were not many people, there were still thousands of people. In the center of the fortress, there was a very large market. In the market, hundreds of people set up stalls. The stalls had all kinds of treasures, martial arts secret manuals, and everything else. Apart from the small number of people, there was no difference from the outside world's market. Yi Shiwen's heart moved. If he wanted to disguise himself as someone else, a complete set of martial arts was indispensable. However, it was more convenient for him to buy a set of martial arts here instead of deducing a set of martial arts out of thin air. Thinking of this, he immediately walked in. There were no shouts. Even the stall owners were making full use of every minute and second to cultivate. All the items were placed in front of them, or they had already made a list. Only when the customers were interested would they be awakened to carry out the transaction. Yi Shiwen's eyes were like lightning. He directly glanced all the way and quickly filtered more than a dozen stalls. He only wanted martial arts. As for other things, he didn't care. Right now, most of what he had learned was focused on fist techniques and sword techniques. Other than that, he had the deepest understanding of the way of the blade and the way of the palm. In particular, the way of the palm could be said to have been born by stepping on Yao Xinyan's corpse. He had devoured his martial arts incarnation on the spot, and his understanding of the way of the palm had skyrocketed. If he wanted to speed up in a short period of time, these aspects were naturally the most suitable. His gaze swept over, and soon, a set of claw techniques appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. This set of claw techniques was called Holy Claw of Judgment. This set of claw techniques was actually a set of deity-level claw techniques, according to the indication. Once this kind of martial arts was spread out, it would definitely cause countless people to fight for it. It might even cause countless worlds to be littered with corpses. But now, it was thrown aside like a roadside vegetable. Holy Claw of Judgment was only priced at 1,000 bloodstones, which made him a little stunned. In fact, it was not surprising that a deity-level martial arts was priced at 1,000,000. Even if it was incomplete, it could be priced at tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. Before he came in, he also had some understanding of the prices in the entire blood prison. Although deity-level martial arts couldn't be regarded as priceless here like in the outside world, it could also be said to be rare. But after a brief look, he knew the reason. This Holy Claw of Judgment was already incomplete. There were only 2 moves in total, and even these two moves were actually incomplete. There was no complete version. It could be said to be incomplete among the incomplete. No wonder no one was interested in it. Wasn't this a scam? It was already incomplete to begin with. Even these two incomplete moves were actually still incomplete. This was simply a scam among scams. However, Yishuan didn't care at all. With the mysterious space, the incomplete martial arts could also be completely deduced. What was there to be afraid of? If it was the complete claw technique, even with Yi Shiwen's current efficiency, he wouldn't dare to say that he could buy it. Moreover, it would probably have been taken away by others. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen quickly said, "Stall owner, I want your holy claw of judgment!" The stall owner opened his eyes and looked at Yi Shiwen with some surprise in his eyes. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to actually want to buy this set of claw techniques that no one had been interested in since it was put up for sale. It was simply a miracle. This set of claw techniques was also obtained in a relic, but it was incomplete. He couldn't even cultivate the only two moves. For him, it was simply an accumulation. It was tasteless, but it was a pity to throw it away. If he kept it, there was no way to cultivate it. But if he threw it away, he was reluctant. After all, it was still a god-level technique. It would be a pity to throw it away. It was just that after he put it up for sale, no one was interested at all. 1,000 bloodstones was not a small amount. It was possible to buy a useless claw technique unless it was a god-level nouveau riche who had already regarded money as dirt. If Yi Shiwen didn't have a way to restore these two moves, he wouldn't be so bored to sell these two completely useless claw techniques. You have to think about it carefully. These two martial arts themselves are incomplete, so if you buy it, you can't come back to me. I don't return the things I sell. He was a little surprised, but he was also afraid that Yi Shiwen would come back to settle the accounts. "Don't worry, I won't come back to trouble you, unless these two martial arts are fake," said Yi Shiwen. "Don't worry, it's not fake, said the man quickly when he saw the situation. He was in a good mood. After hanging here for so many years, someone finally bought it. Thousands of bloodstones. It was also not a small amount of money. After the transaction, Yi Shiwen got this holy claw of judgment. He simply didn't even bother to bargain. For others, if they wanted to get bloodstones, they had to go through various means, but he only needed to kill. As long as there was enough time, he could get as many as he wanted. There was no need to worry at all. He immediately flipped through the holy claw of judgment. Chapter 2170. This Judgment Holy Claw had a total of two moves, namely the Freedom Claw and the Soul-Crushing Blood Claw. Among them, the Freedom Claw was an area of effect attack. Once the claw was unleashed, the entire world would completely change its color and collapse endlessly. The Soul-Crushing Blood Claw was a single-target attack. It was very tyrannical. Once it was used, the sky would fall and the earth would crack. When cultivated to the peak, a world could be easily torn into two halves. However, they were all incomplete. Not to mention the other moves of the Judgment Holy Claw, just the Freedom Claw and the Soul-Crushing Blood Claw had a lot of damage. Among them, the Freedom Claw was the most exaggerated. The loss rate was as high as 50%. The Soul-Crushing Blood Claw also had a loss rate of 30%. No wonder the middle-aged man's expression was as if he had picked up a big bargain. If it was someone else, they would probably be dumbfounded. They couldn't even make up for it. They were just demigods. Wasn't it nonsense to want to repair the god-level martial arts? It was already very difficult for them to comprehend the god-level martial arts. Was there any hope for a higher-level martial arts? However, for Yi Shiwen, this was not a problem at all. With the mysterious space, it was nothing more than spending a large price to complete the martial arts. Then he glanced at the entire market. Although there were other martial arts, they were all mythical-level martial arts. These might be considered rare for others, but for him, it was nothing at all. There was not much meaning in learning it. He put away the Judgment Holy Claw. This was not a place for cultivation. He walked towards the residential area on the other side of the fortress. There were many courtyards for rent. However, the rental fee was also 1 bloodstone per day. It was very expensive. Fortunately, the environment was good. He didn't have to worry about being disturbed by others. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate anymore. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth pulled up into a smile. He sneered, "There are actually some flies." he found that there were several people following behind him. It seemed that his generosity had made many people regard him as a fat sheep. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. In the outside world, these people were all grandmasters and world overlords. They might not necessarily do such things. However, in the blood prison, there were no grandmasters or overlords. They were just existences struggling at the bottom. Temperament also had to be tempered from the beginning, so it was nothing at all. This was the difference in status. Just like Yi Shiwen, if he was in the ancient barons or in the true martial domain, he would be the supreme overlord, and no one could disobey him. However, in the divine transformation abyss, he was still far from reaching the overlord level of strength. Naturally, they couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. However, even though his cultivation was not at the peak, it was still wishful thinking for some small fries to take advantage of him. However, these people didn't dare to act presumptuously within the fortress. After all, this was the place where everyone was staying. If they really made a move here, it would be equivalent to becoming everyone's enemy. No one wanted anything to happen to this last safe place. Therefore, he didn't mind letting them wait. After paying enough bloodstones for a month's residence, he immediately entered the small courtyard and started closed-door training. The bloodstones on his body were almost consumed, so if he wanted to deduce the 2 moves of Judgment Holy Claw, he definitely couldn't use bloodstones, so he could only use Divine Source. Including the ones he received and the ones he exchanged later, Yi Shiwen now had a total of 25 Divine Source in his hands, which was definitely more than enough for general cultivation. He immediately started to go into closed-door training and deduced the 2 moves of Judgment Holy Claw. In a space of nothingness, Yi Shiwen sat in a piece of nothingness, and in front of him, a looming figure stood in the void, grabbing out directly with a claw. In the void, 5 huge blood shadows were grabbed, and the sky was also torn into 5 huge pieces. He was deducing the claw technique of soul-crushing blood claw. This soul-crushing blood claw was worthy of being a god-level technique. Even Yi Shiwen couldn't see through it at a glance, although he really didn't have much attainment in claw techniques. At the same time, a lot of knowledge about claw techniques was also deduced by him, and his cultivation in claw techniques was also rapidly improving. Originally, his understanding of claw techniques was still in a state of half-understanding because he didn't study too much in this aspect. However, with his current realm, these martial arts were nothing more than comprehending by analogy. His cultivation speed was very fast. In addition, he was also willing to invest in this aspect. Piece by piece, he used up the divine source without hesitation. With the continuous burning of these divine sources, energy poured into the mysterious space, and his understanding of claw techniques was in a state of rapid progress. It took him a full month to complete the repair of the 2 moves of Judgment Holy Claw. During this process, he consumed a total of 2 divine sources, and only then did he barely complete the repair of Judgment Holy Claw. However, when he completed the repair of Judgment Holy Claw, his understanding of claw techniques also began to enter a whole new realm. Although there were only 2 moves, it was enough. The power was very great, and the changes were endless. Just like Yi Shiwen, although he currently only knew the human Tao fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, he was still extremely powerful when he exerted the power of human Tao fist to the extreme. However, if he wanted to master Judgment Holy Claw, the current him was far from enough. Without any hesitation, he directly immersed himself in cultivation again. At this time, outside his courtyard, a group of people were looking inside, and their faces showed a bit of impatience. Why isn't he coming out yet? Is he going to cultivate until he dies? Someone said impatiently. I don't know, but since he has no plans to come out in the short term, we can't continue to delay like this. You guys take turns to monitor him for a period of time. Once there is news of him, report immediately. However, this can also verify one thing, which is that he doesn't have the lack bloodstone at all. If we can snatch it, we can also become rich overnight. Among these people, an old man with a sinister face said. He was the leader of these people, and his cultivation was also very high. Yi Shiwen didn't know that the people waiting for him outside were already very impatient. At this time, He had already entered the most critical period of his cultivation. He had already cultivated the Judgment Holy Claw to a critical point. He could only withdraw his vigilance and devote himself wholeheartedly to it. Just like this, another 3 months passed. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen, who had been sitting cross-legged, finally opened his eyes all of a sudden. A fierce astral wind swept out directly around his body. It formed a huge astral wind, soul-crushing blood claw. He stretched out his hand and clawed suddenly. The space within 3 meters around him collapsed, but there was not a trace of leakage. It was conceivable that he had cultivated these powers to the extreme. "I finally mastered Judgment Holy Claw," said Yi Shiwen. His hand was faintly shining. This was the proof that his hand technique had been cultivated to the extreme. He didn't hide it. It just so happened that there must be 1 or 2 obvious signs when walking in the blood prison with this identity. This Judgment Holy Claw was not bad. In the future, he would show off his claw technique in front of others. He smiled slightly. Finally, the claw technique was accomplished. He had a new direction of breakthrough in martial arts. It was just that he only had 20 pieces of Divine Source left. It consumed a total of 5 pieces of Divine Source. But in general, the effect was still good. Although it couldn't be compared with the peak, it was more than enough as a choice to conceal his identity. Yi Shiwen's divine senses swept out, but he found that those people from half a year ago were still there. They were completely haunting him. "It just so happens that I'm going out too. I'll accumulate more bloodstones and get rid of these pestering flies in one go." He had made up his mind, so he didn't hesitate anymore. He directly strode out of the small courtyard. He didn't teleport away immediately. On the contrary, he walked out slowly and paid the rent that he owed during this period of time. After confirming that the stalker had noticed him, he directly went out of the fortress. It didn't take long for him to feel that a group of people was already following behind him. He pretended not to notice and went all the way to the depths of the blood world. He didn't rush to force them out. Instead, he first tested the power of Judgment Holy Claw. Judgment Holy Claw. His claw directly collapsed the void. He directly grabbed out many hidden blood demons. They turned into a mass of blood energy on the spot and were devoured by him. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. He was very satisfied with the power of Judgment Holy Claw. After he led these people out of the fortress, he suddenly stopped. Just as those people behind him were about to make a move, he finally spoke and said, "Still not coming out? You've been following me for so long. Why don't you come out and meet me?" As soon as his voice fell, 7 or 8 figures appeared behind him. They quickly occupied a favorable position and surrounded him. They were led by an old man in a silver robe with a sinister face. "I didn't expect to be discovered by you. Since you've discovered it, then obediently hand over all your wealth. Although I don't know why you have so much wealth, you'd better obediently do as we say. Otherwise, you'll die very miserably. As long as you obediently cooperate, I'll give you a quick death," said the old man coldly. I'm going to die anyway. Why should I cooperate with you?" said Yi Shiwen faintly, but he didn't panic at all. "If you don't cooperate, I have 1,000 ways to torture you. I guarantee that you'll regret your choice," said the sinister old man coldly. Yi Shiwen chuckled. "Have you blockheads never thought about how I got all the bloodstones on me?" Chapter 2171. Everyone was stunned for a moment. They really did not think about this. However, thinking about it, it was most likely exchanged with other wealth. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen was just a Paolong Realm 7th level. With such strength, he could be destroyed in the blood prison even if he went a little further. It was nothing at all. "What do you mean?" The old man with a gloomy face couldn't help but say coldly. "I mean, you are idiots." Yi Shiwen stepped out and swept out directly on the spot. His whole body was like a whirlwind, directly rushing in front of the old man with a gloomy face. "Aren't you coveting my 1,000 bloodstones? I will now let you see what my 1,000 bloodstones have been exchanged for. Soul Crusher Blood Claw." He directly opened his 5 fingers and condensed them into a claw. He grabbed out and clawed out 5 astonishing blood marks. The entire world was divided into 5 parts by these 5 blood marks. It was like a landscape painting that was torn into pieces. The extremely terrifying claw power overpowered the body of the gloomy old man. Puff! His entire body was like the void, directly torn apart. Ah! The gloomy old man let out a blood-curdling screech as his entire body was torn apart. However, under the drive of a strange force, his body condensed again. However, his face was also pale. Obviously, his vitality was also greatly injured. He was completely injured by Yi Shiwen. How is it possible? The old man looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. As an existence at the peak of Paoang Realm 8th level, Yi Shiwen was only at Paoang Realm 7th level. He was almost unable to fight back. One claw almost killed him. It was almost in one breath that he had no strength to fight back. He finally understood why Yi Shiwen was so fearless. Yi Shiwen actually had such confidence. Naturally, he was fearless. With such combat power, perhaps even a master at Paoang Realm 9th level would be killed by one claw. How can he be so strong? Could it be? 1,010,000 possibilities flashed in his mind. You do have some ability. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant in front of me. However, if you want to contend against me with this, you are still far from it. Yi Shiwen sneered and once again clawed out. All the defenses of the old man in front of him collapsed on the spot. The old man was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all and was crushed on the spot. This time, the old man could no longer condense it. He had already suffered a great deal of damage to his vitality, and now he was clawed to death. You actually dared to attack us. We are the subordinates of the 9th Elder of the Sky-Bearing Fortress. You're finished. The remaining people couldn't help but speak in fear. It wasn't that they hadn't seen people being killed before, but it was the first time they had been forced into such a desperate situation. But he had never encountered such a thing before. So, it's an internal parasite. You're breaking the law despite knowing it. However, so what if your 9th Elder personally takes action? Do you really think I'm a pushover? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer, but it's useless. Anyway, you can't wait until that time. He clawed out, claw of freedom. Suddenly, the sky was full of claw shadows. The shadows were intertwined, and the sky collapsed, directly shrouding these people. These people were even worse. Most of them were only at the 3rd or 4th level of Paoang Realm. They were not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all, and were directly clawed to death. After the death of these people, their wealth also belonged to Yi Shiwen. However, they didn't have many bloodstones on them. In fact, the total number of bloodstones on their bodies was only around 2,000. So, he somewhat understood why they were so excited when they saw 1,000 bloodstones. Especially the old man with a gloomy face. He only had more than 1,000 bloodstones on him. This was the gap. After obtaining bloodstones, it was impossible not to use them. Whether it was as a hard currency or for cultivation, they had to be used. So, not many of them were left. Yi Shiwen could condense thousands of bloodstones at any time. For others, it was no different than a legend. He was also quite satisfied with the power of the Holy Claw of Judgment. When fully exerted, it could fully display his current strength. It could be said to be the extreme. In this case, there was no problem at all for him to walk in the blood prison with a new identity. No one would doubt that the person with this outstanding claw technique would actually be Yi Shiwen. He still had to endure it now, but it didn't mean that he would continue to endure it. 5 years, at most 5 years, he must make Yao Xingqing and others pay the price. Yi Shiwen directly crushed these 2,000 bloodstones, which turned into a mighty river of qi and blood, which he swallowed on the spot. He could feel that the power of his whole body had skyrocketed, and he was one step closer to the peak of the 7th level of Paoang Realm. He didn't immediately return to the Sky-Bearing Castle, but launched a massacre nearby. His Holy Claw of Judgment still needed more training, and he also wanted to deduce the remaining parts of the Holy Claw of Judgment. Whoosh! He directly grabbed the sky full of claw shadows, and countless void collapsed in an instant. The rules were manifested in it. Although it was not as obvious here as in the deification abyss, it was far beyond other places. In addition to the special environment in the blood prison, it made the cultivation speed here a notch higher. But naturally, the danger here was also self-evident. In just a short span of 10 days, he had encountered 3 formidable blood demons of the 9th heavenly layer of Paong realm. He had killed 2 of them, but the last one had been able to contend with him, and they had ended up in a tie. This was only the periphery of the blood prison. If he continued to go deeper, he might encounter even more terrifying blood demons of the peak of the myth realm. He had no doubt that with his current situation, even if he entered, he would only be able to escape. Among the thousands of people in the 3rd district of the deification abyss, only about 10 or 20 people could wander in it. With his strength, it was naturally not enough. He killed for a full 3 months in the vicinity before he stopped. At this time, the bloodstones he had gathered, besides those that were devoured by him, had reached tens of thousands. With so many bloodstones, he planned to go all out and directly rush to the peak of Paong Realm 7th level. At that time, even if Yao Xingqing came in person, he would dare to compete with him. He immediately returned to the sky-bearing fortress without hesitation. This was the only stronghold in the vicinity. However, as soon as he returned to the sky-bearing fortress, he suddenly shouted and exploded in the air. "How dare you? How dare you kill my people?" Accompanied by this loud shout, a figure descended from the sky. Obviously, it had been waiting for him for a long time. Yi Shiwen looked up and saw that it was a devil race. Moreover, it was a great devil race. It directly flapped its wings and stared at Yi Shiwen coldly. Then, an overwhelming and powerful devil energy directly shrouded Yi Shiwen. This was the 9th elder of the sky-bearing fortress. The sky-bearing fortress had been built for a very long time, and no one had been able to verify it. The ones who ruled the entire sky-bearing fortress now were the 9 supreme masters of the 9th heaven of the Paong realm. They formed the highest level of existence in the sky-bearing fortress. In this blood prison, Paong realm 8th level did not have much status, let alone a mere Paong realm 7th level. No one paid attention to him at all. Only Paong realm 9th level had some status and could serve as the fort lord. Obviously, those flies that Yi Shiwen had killed a few months ago had already been discovered by this devil race. Even if I killed them, so what? Yi Shiwen said lightly. "How dare you? I haven't seen such a bold human in a long time." The great demon sneered. The human race and the demon race were born to be mortal enemies. Even if it was not in the ancient times, there would not be much change. You are the castle lord, yet you allow your subordinates to rob us of our wealth. Who would dare to live in your towering sky castle in the future? Are you going to kill anyone who has a little bit of wealth? Yi Shiwen shouted. What? How could such a thing happen? Those people are actually the 9th elder subordinates. No wonder the sky-bearing fortress did not do anything when someone was killed. If this is true, I dare not continue to live here. Isn't this killing people? Yes, I dare not live here either. Only a madman would want to live here. Suddenly, countless people in the sky-bearing fortress were shocked. If this was true, how could they continue to live here? They would be killed as long as they had a little bit of wealth. It would be better to go out and fight against the blood demons. Nonsense. Even this fearless demon would not dare to casually agree to such an important matter. This was because this sky-propping castle did not belong to him alone. It also involved the other 8 castle lords, and he was only the lowest-ranking elder among them. If he agreed to this matter and caused everyone to leave, it would be cutting off everyone's source of wealth. Cutting off one source of wealth was like killing one's parents. He was also very clear about this truth. At that time, he would really become a thorn in the side of the other elders. I'm talking nonsense? You know very well whether I'm talking nonsense or not. Those guys are bold. They would not dare to do such a thing if they did not have someone to back them up. Yi Shiwen sneered. You have to show evidence if you want to slander me. This great demon was completely driven mad by Yi Shiwen. His original plan to get rid of Yi Shiwen in a thunderous manner suddenly vanished. Evidence? Haha, you're actually talking to me about evidence? That's so funny. Yi Shiwen's eyes were filled with killing intent. Do I need to talk to you about evidence? If I say you are, then you are. Moreover, do you think I intend to talk to you about principles? Everyone who provokes me must die. As he spoke, Yi Shiwen's figure directly jumped out. Chapter 2172. Boom! Yi Shiwen took a step forward, like a cannonball directly blasting into the ocean, setting off boundless airwaves, causing an uproar. Everyone only saw a flash in front of them. Unknowingly, Yi Shiwen had already rushed in front of the great demon at the 9th level of the Paoang realm. Although he did not spread his demon wings, he had already cultivated to the level of storm wings. Even without spreading his demon wings, his speed was still extremely fast. This was his current strength. Even without using any means, he had already steadily raised his combat strength to the level of the 9th level of the Paoang realm. So fast! When did it happen? I didn't even see it. Can the 7th level of the Paoang realm be so strong? In the sky-bearing fortress, many people who were paying attention to this side were instantly shocked because Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. It was simply too fast. Boom! After all, the great demon was a top existence at the 9th level of the Paoang realm. Compared to the subordinate at the 8th level of the Paoang realm, it was not known how many times more tyrannical it was. Almost at the moment when it was only a hair's breadth away, its hands directly spread out an incomparably huge light wall. In just 1,000th of a second, Yi Shiwen's fist slammed into the light wall, and then with a boom, the light wall directly shattered, unable to withstand Yi Shiwen's incomparably terrifying strength. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist directly hit the body of the great demon. The great demon did not have much time to react and was directly blasted out, flying out of the sky-bearing fortress for thousands of miles on the spot. A huge crack appeared on its head, almost like a blow had caused it to be seriously injured. The scene was completely silent. Even some masters who were planning to attack seemed to be completely frightened when they saw this scene, and did not dare to attack at will. Roar! The great demon's loud roar came from afar, the sound spreading for thousands of miles. Boom! A monstrous wave of air swept directly from afar, wrapped in a shocking demonic shadow, descended from the sky, and on the spot, it clawed towards Yi Shiwen. Boom! The void behind Yi Shiwen collapsed with a loud bang when this incomparably huge claw arrived in front of him. Because the speed of the claw was faster than the speed of the void's collapse, it led to the strange scene of the devil's claw attacking him, but the void had just collapsed. Yi Shiwen didn't panic in the face of this devil's claw. He directly attacked at the critical moment. Soul-breaking blood claw. 5 huge blood-colored cracks appeared in the void, rapidly expanding, directly turning into 5 incomparably huge rivers of blood that flowed through the sky. Wherever they passed, everything would collapse, unable to stop them at all. Boom! The demonic claw was instantly swallowed up by the 5 huge cracks. Then, behind the demonic claw, an incomparably loud scream rang out, and the entire person was forcibly grabbed and sent flying. The great devil was blasted away, and along the way, a huge crack was left in the void. It could be seen how much power he had encountered. Almost the entire void collapsed, and his entire body was on the verge of shattering. And at the same time, Yi Shiwen took a step forward, 1,000 miles in the blink of an eye, and directly arrived in front of the great devil. The great fiend lord was terrified. "Great devil domain!" He roared loudly, and suddenly his whole body directly turned into a devil's kingdom. Endless devil's law extended, and completely evolved into a terrifying devil's land. The surrounding laws were completely covered up and devoured by him. The domain extended by a master of Paoang, 9th level, could almost instantly form a small world. In this small world, he was the only true god, he was the only master. Soul-breaking blood claw. In the eyes of the greater demon, the 5 blood-colored cracks grew larger and larger, and in an instant, they directly blasted his body. Puchi, his iron-like body, which he had always been proud of, had been easily crushed by Yi Shiwen in an instant. His devil's law was also broken in an instant, and in an instant, he was crushed by Yi Shiwen. He was completely no match for Yi Shiwen. Ah! The great devil screamed, and was directly crushed to death, without any strength to fight back. And the people in the sky-bearing fortress were still stunned, watching helplessly as Yi Shiwen directly crushed the great devil to death. And there was no other way, or in other words, they did not want to be enemies with Yi Shiwen, who was now as terrifying as a devil. And at this moment, in the void, a few shadows appeared. Each of the shadows had an unimaginably powerful aura, and without exception, all of them were existences of Powong 9th level. The other 8 great elders of the sky-bearing fortress had all appeared here. And under the gaze of the 8 great experts of Powong 9th level, Yi Shiwen did not feel uncomfortable at all and said, "Why? Do you also want to stand up for him? Death cannot wipe out his crimes. He actually dared to do such a thing in private. This is equivalent to cutting off our source of wealth. No matter how he dies, it will not be considered too much." Someone spoke up, and it seemed that they did not want to fall out with Yi Shiwen. They were still very afraid of Yi Shiwen, who could easily crush an existence of Powong 9th level, and if possible, they also did not want to fall out with Yi Shiwen. Moreover, as Yi Shiwen had said before, they were the supreme rulers of the sky-bearing castle. The sky-bearing castle had been delivering benefits to them at all times. This great demon's actions were tantamount to cutting off their source of wealth. Cutting off one's source of wealth was like killing one's parents. This principle was applicable everywhere, not to mention that they were obviously just a group of interests. They would not do anything for this great devil. Yi Shiwen had long understood this point, so he was not in a hurry. If these people's relationship was really that good, they would not have stood aside and watched for so long. Although he had acted very quickly, these experts would still have a chance to intervene at any time. They also could not fall out with him for a dead person. Now that I have killed him, I request to join the elders of the sky-bearing fortress. I want the same treatment he received. I believe you will not refuse a master." Yi Shiwen said lightly. These masters were silent for a while. Although one more person meant one more person to share a share in the blood prison, it was not so simple. One more person meant one more strength. In a place like the blood prison, where it could be destroyed at any time, even if the fortress was built, it was still useless. It could still be destroyed under the attack of a large wave of blood demons. One more person meant one more strength. It was just that it was not easy to find a master of Powong 9th level. They only had these few in these years. Now that one person could join, they naturally could not ask for more. So soon, they also expressed their opinions. "I have no objections. Yes, anything is fine, but you have to shoulder the responsibility he has to shoulder." Yi Shiwen smiled. Yao Shengqing and Jing Tianlei probably hadn't even dreamed of this. They had thought that he would be hiding everywhere like a mouse. However, he had now become an elder of a fort. He had become the highest level of this fort. There was no need to hide at all. "In that case, let me introduce myself first. You can call me young Master Duo Ming in the future," Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Everyone had no objections, although they also knew that this was definitely a code name. It could not be Yi Shiwen's real identity, but who cared about this? They needed to borrow Yi Shiwen's strength, and there was only one purpose, which was to prove their Tao. Other things did not matter at all. "In that case, you are the 9th elder. You can also inherit the original 9th elder's matter. I will give the order. No one will make things difficult for you." After speaking, those figures in the void also slowly disappeared from everyone's eyes. Yi Shiwen held a folding fan in his hand, slightly opened it, gently waved it, and then swaggered into the sky fortress. Everyone had a shocked look on their faces. They hadn't expected that things would turn out like this. Yi Shiwen had killed the original 9th elder, but had replaced him instead. However, everyone thought that this was normal. The weak were prey to the strong. Although they were all legendary masters who could summon the wind and summon the rain outside, they were still far from being able to do so here. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's battle only affected the two of them. It did not affect them. So soon, this matter was forgotten by them, and they began to enter the state of cultivation. If there were no special circumstances, this sky fortress was no different from the other fortresses, a group of crazy cultivators cultivating. Yi Shiwen entered the sky fortress, and then directly went to the original Great Demon's Mansion, which was also the innermost place in the entire sky fortress, considered the best place, But the great demon had transformed it into a demonic land, which Yishiwen did not like, and directly set up a formation, changing this place into a holy land, with a small bridge over a flowing river, a scene of immortals. As for the servants that were originally captured by the great devil, he didn't drive away any of them. Instead, he kept all of them. Anyway, these were insignificant servants. For him, it didn't matter at all. After settling the original Ninth Elder's people, Yi Shiwen immediately entered the state of closed-door cultivation. This time, he wanted to rush to the peak of Paong Realm in one go. At that time, unless he encountered a Dao Confirmation Master, otherwise he really would not be afraid of anyone. Everything was only one step away. Chapter 2173. After settling down the Ninth Elder's people, Yi Shiwen began to enter the state of closed-door training. After entering the mansion, he discovered that the Ninth Elder had a lot of wealth. He actually had tens of thousands of bloodstones. Compared to his subordinates, the Ninth Elder was many times richer. Of course, it was still incomparable to Yi Shiwen's. The Ninth Elder's wealth was not much different from Yi Shiwen's harvest in a few months. With these 20,000 bloodstones as a foundation, Yi Shiwen was much more confident in breaking through to the peak of the 7th level of Paong Realm. As long as he broke through to the peak of the 7th level of Paong Realm, he had nothing to worry about. After entering closed-door training, he directly grabbed the condensed blood chi of 1,000 bloodstones and swallowed them all on the spot. Boom! The boundless energy all rushed into his body and started to run around in his body. In his body, it was constantly bursting. He operated the observing person scripture and the art conversion technique. These two techniques were constantly operating in his body, like a giant beast, constantly devouring the blood chi and turning it into his life essence. His body devoured the boundless energy hungrily. His whole body was like a huge blood pool, constantly absorbing the blood essence into it. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed in a hurry. 2 years' time was nothing compared to the long time in the blood prison. It was also nothing for the sky-bearing fortress. In the past 2 years, there were not many changes in the sky-bearing fortress. There were also no changes due to the addition of the Ninth Elder. There were a few blood demon waves, and countless blood demons attacked the defense of the sky-bearing fortress. However, they were not able to break through the defense of the sky-bearing fortress. A few elders came out of closed-door training and easily dealt with them. They could not really attack the defense of the sky-bearing fortress. Everything was calm, as if it had been many years ago. It had always been like this since a long time ago. At this time, Yi Shiwen came out of closed-door training quietly. If there were people familiar with him, they would be able to see that Yi Shiwen had become more mellow, and his control of his aura was more stable. He had successfully broken through to the peak of the 7th level of the Paong realm. It was just an advancement within the same realm, and not a new realm. Therefore, there was not much movement, and he did not show off his abilities. But only he knew that during the past 2 years, his strength had increased tremendously. There was no fundamental breakthrough, because if he took another step forward, he would already be at the Dao corroboration level. No matter what, it was impossible for him to cross over. Therefore, he did not attempt to cross over casually. What he lacked now was to condense the Saber Dao incarnation. As long as he could condense the Saber Dao incarnation, he would be the first person below Dao validation. At that time, what Yao Xingqing, what Jing Tianlei, what Abyssal Demon Lord, they wouldn't even be able to withstand a single blow. Unless they attained the Dao, it was impossible for them to be his match. However, in order to condense a Saber Dao incarnation, aside from having a certain level of comprehension of the Saber Dao, the most important thing was to have sufficient energy. Be it divine source or bloodstones, they all required a lot. However, he didn't expect that someone would come knocking on his door as soon as he came out of seclusion. It was none other than the second elder of the 9 great elders. He was a short and fat man who always had a smile on his face. He was dressed luxuriously like a businessman. However, it was precisely because of this that he was in charge of the various economic affairs in the sky-bearing castle. He had always been in charge of it very well. In the past 2 years, Yi Shiwen's share had not been reduced at all. "What's the matter? Is it rare for you to come?" Yi Shiwen looked at the second elder with a smile. The second elder looked at Yi Shiwen with some surprise. He could see that Yi Shiwen's strength had become much stronger in the past 2 years. It was indeed quite amazing to be able to make such progress in a mere 2 years. After all, at their level, it could be said that every step was extremely difficult. If it was in the outside world, it might take more than 1,000 years to take a single step. If it was a race with a short lifespan like the human race, it was possible that they would waste their entire lives and turn into dust. However, even in the deification abyss, it was still very amazing to be able to make such great progress in 2 years. Especially the second elder. He had not made any progress for decades. If he were to go one step further, he would be able to prove his Tao. In comparison, Yi Shiwen had more room for improvement. He was only at the 7th level of the Paolong realm, and he was already so amazing. If he continued to practice, it would be even worse. He knew that Yi Shiwen's origin must be quite extraordinary. Otherwise, how could it be possible for a 7th level of the Paolong realm to defeat a 9th level of the Paolong realm without the strength to fight back? However, he would not ask in detail. It was just that Yi Shiwen was strong enough. Thinking of this, he became even more enthusiastic. One doesn't come without a reason. "Old Jiu, you have been here for 2 years. During these 2 years, we did not disturb you when you were in closed-door cultivation. However, you also know that after enjoying the benefits, we naturally have to fulfill our obligations." The second elder looked at Yi Shiwen and said with a smile, "What kind of tasks are there?" Yi Shiwen asked. "Old Jiu, you should also know that for the past 2 years, we have been able to send you about 10,000 bloodstones every year, right?" The second elder said. "Yes." Yi Shiwen nodded. It was all thanks to the 40,000 bloodstones that he was able to improve his cultivation base so quickly. It is naturally impossible to support so much consumption just by relying on the income of the sky-bearing castle. The second elder said, "Our main income is still a low-grade bloodstone mine 100,000 miles away from the sky-bearing castle." Bloodstone mine? Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard it. In the blood prison, condensing bloodstones out of thin air was indeed a method, but it was strenuous and unrewarding. The more important thing was to excavate the bloodstone mines buried deep in the blood prison. These bloodstone mines were buried deep in the blood prison and were also the main source of bloodstones for the major forces. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to meet the demand under normal circumstances. Yes, it is a bloodstone mine. However, the bloodstone mine is 100,000 miles away from here. It is very far, so we need someone to oversee it for a long time. Generally speaking, we also take turns to oversee it in order to prevent the blood demons from causing trouble. More importantly, it is to prevent the Flying Cloud Castle from spying on us. The Flying Cloud Castle has been eyeing our bloodstone mine for a long time. This is the foundation of our survival. Once it falls into the hands of the Flying Cloud Castle, the consequences will be unimaginable. Our sky-bearing castle will collapse directly without a fight, the second elder said solemnly. Yi Shiwen also understood that for a force like the sky-bearing castle, a bloodstone mine was the foundation of their survival. All of their expenditures depended on this bloodstone mine. As for other sources of income, there was no way to compare with the bloodstone mine. Now, it's your turn to take charge. Of course, we won't ask you to take charge for a long time. 2 years is enough. Normally, there's a cycle every 2 years. I've been the one taking charge before. Now, it's your turn, the second elder explained in a friendly manner. If that is the case, then I will go. Yi Shiwen also knew that there was no such good thing as just taking benefits without doing anything. 2 years later, he was about to be released from prison. At that time, he still wanted to rush out and soar to the sky. Most importantly, he wanted to condense the Blade Tao incarnation. It was the time when he needed a huge amount of bloodstones. Once he oversaw the bloodstone mine, it would be a good opportunity for him to steal what he was guarding. At that time, he would be able to get as much as he could. He looked at the second elder. Obviously, the second elder also understood the rules, but he didn't care because everyone would have their turn, and everyone would have their turn. Naturally, he didn't have to worry about others taking advantage of him, because he was the same. However, even if they died, they probably would not have guessed how amazing the amount of bloodstones Yi Shiwen could absorb was. Yi Shiwen did not say anything. At this time, the most important thing was to make a fortune in silence. Then, I will have to trouble you, my good brother. The second elder smiled and went out. In the past 2 years, he had also made a lot of money. At this time, it was time to go back and properly digest it. Yi Shiwen did not stay for long. After giving some instructions, he hurriedly rushed in the direction pointed by the second elder. The distance of 100,000 miles could be said to be long, but it could also be said to be short. With Yi Shiwen's cultivation, it did not take long for him to arrive. Who was in front? Stop! As soon as he entered, a guard immediately came forward. All of them were experts in the myth realm. They were all experts of the sky-bearing castle under the 9 great elders. They were no different from the people in the secular world. Yi Shiwen directly showed his waist tag. They were immediately dumbfounded. The person in front of them was actually an elder. However, they had not seen him before. The 9 great elders rotated every 2 years. Therefore, those who had been here for a longer period of time had more or less seen the 9 great elders. It was just that they had never heard of such an elder from the human race. However, the waist tag couldn't be faked. At this time, they thought of another rumor. The original 9th elder had been killed, and the person who killed him became the new 9th elder. Could it be that the person in front of them was the one in front of them? Thinking of this, they immediately broke out in cold sweat. They had actually stopped the new elder. To them, the 9 great elders were all figures at the top of the golden pagoda. They had never seen anyone who had proven their Tao before. These were the most powerful experts they had ever seen. If they angered them, they might look like myths, but it would only take a few minutes for them to kill them. They immediately apologized. Yi Shiwen did not want to waste any more words with them. He directly ordered them to find the supervisor and then directly entered the Bloodstone mine. Chapter 2174. Although it was in the mine, there was also a secret room for cultivation. After all, the 9 great elders would constantly take turns to come over to oversee the mine. He went straight into the secret room built for the 9 great elders and went straight into the bloodstone vein. Not long after he sat down, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard, and a figure jumped in. It was an old man with white hair and a beard. He did not bow and scrape, but he was polite in a reserved manner. His cultivation was also very high. Yi Shiwen could see at a glance that this old man was also at the 8th level of Paong realm. Under normal circumstances, he would be able to control the situation. "Greetings, 9th elder." He cupped his hands and said. He could be considered a senior, even more so than most of the elders. Many of the elders were very courteous to him. Because he had always been in the Bloodstone mine, everything depended on him. There were still many masters at the 8th level of Paong realm, but if there was no special opportunity, they might not be able to step into the 9th level of Paong realm and reach the peak of the myth realm. This was also the reason why they were willing to exchange cultivation resources for their subordinates. Otherwise, as long as there was some hope, these overlords would not be willing to live under someone else's roof, but people under the eaves had to bow their heads. "Please sit down." Yi Shiwen did not put on airs and said directly. The old man looked at him with some surprise. He seemed to be surprised that Yi Shiwen was only at the 7th level of Paong realm, but he could actually become the 9th elder. It seemed that the rumor was not a joke, but a real thing. However, he only glanced at Qi Li in astonishment before immediately withdrawing his gaze. "I am new here, and there are still many things I need to ask you," Yi Shiwen said. Although Yi Shiwen had lowered his stance, he would not underestimate Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen was not at the 9th level of Paong realm, he could play with the masters of the 9th level of Paong realm in the palm of his hand. According to the news he received, the 9th elder who was originally at the 9th level of Paong realm could be said to have been defeated by him easily. He did not have the strength to fight back at all. Such a strong person was not someone he could fight against. Furthermore, to be able to gain the trust of the other elders and take charge of this place for so many years, it wasn't just because he was capable, but also because he knew how to conduct himself. If there's anything Just tell me, ninth elder, the old steward said. I want to ask, how much can this bloodstone mine produce in a year? Yishuan asked. Reporting to the ninth elder, this bloodstone mine produces about 150,000 bloodstones a year. In addition to the 10,000 bloodstones given to each of the elders, it is mainly given to us as dividends, as well as turned over to the deity Abyss. Basically, there is not much left in a year. The old butler was not surprised. After all, Yi Shiwen was an outsider, so it was normal that he did not know this. Yi Shiwen nodded. Although it seemed that the income was not small, after dividing it equally among so many people, there was also the consideration of the people below him, as well as the amount that had to be handed over to the deity Transformation Abyss, so there was not much left. There's one more question. People aren't allowed to stay in the blood prison. So, who's the one mining? Yishuan asked. Not everyone could mine the bloodstone mine in the blood prison. Without the cultivation of the myth realm, they would not even have the ability to mine. The bloodstone mine in the blood world could not be mined using ordinary methods. It had to be mined using the law as a sword to open the connection between the bloodstone and the bloodstone mine. Only then could it be mined. Masters who were not in the myth realm could not do it at all. Moreover, masters who were not in the myth realm could not stay in the blood prison for long unless they were local creatures. Otherwise, they would soon be devoured by the law of the blood prison, and it was normal for them to turn into blood demons. In the distant past, such a situation had always happened. Later, gradually, masters below the myth realm became fewer and fewer. Only the myth realm masters could rely on the condensed divinity to resist the erosion of the law of the blood prison. They are all scattered people. They are all attached to the sky-bearing fortress. Every day, they are allowed to mine. After handing over a part of their harvest, how much they can mine depends on themselves, said the old butler. Generally speaking, it is easy for a person to mine more than 100 pieces of this kind in a day. Then, we will take half of it, and the other half will belong to them. Of course, although mining here is relatively profitable, in fact, it is more dangerous. This place is far away from the sky-bearing fortress. If a blood demon tide suddenly occurs, they may not be able to escape. Yishuan nodded. The profit was naturally proportional to the risk. There is no such thing as a free lunch. If I am in charge, what do I need to be careful about? Asked Yishuan. He was not afraid to ask more. He believed that the other party did not have the guts to hide anything. Although the other party was also in the 8th level of Powong realm, it was only a matter of minutes for him to take action. I will take care of the trivial matters. There is no need to trouble the elder. However, you also need to pay attention to two aspects. First, we do not know when the blood demons will appear. If it is an individual powerful blood demon, we will naturally need the 9th elder to deal with it. If it is a blood demon tide, then there is no need to do so. We will have no choice but to run away when we encounter a blood demon tide, said the butler seriously. This was also the most important part. Apart from this, the most important thing is to be careful of the people from the Flying Cloud Fortress. They have been coveting our bloodstone mine for a long time. It can be said that they have always wanted to devour our bloodstone mine. Yishuan nodded and asked again, where is the Flying Cloud Fortress? Compared to the sky-bearing fortress, which is stronger. The Flying Cloud Fortress is less than 300,000 miles to the north of here. Although it is a little further than the sky-bearing fortress, this bloodstone mine is still within their range of vision. In the past 100 years, we have had many conflicts with the Flying Cloud Fortress, explained the old butler. As for which aspect is stronger, the Flying Cloud Fortress is definitely stronger. In the sky-bearing fortress, including you, there are only 9 experts in the 9th level of Powong realm, while the Flying Cloud Fortress has as many as 15. None of the nearby fortresses can be compared to the Flying Cloud Fortress. Yishuan nodded. It was no wonder that he had been warned to be careful of the Soaring Cloud Castle. The strength of the Soaring Cloud Castle was already bad enough. It would not be a problem for it to dominate the Xian world outside. However, the strength of the Soaring Cloud Castle was almost double that of the Soaring Cloud Castle. Such strength was simply inconceivable in the outside world. Since we have bloodstone mines, the Flying Cloud Fortress should also have bloodstone mines, right? Asked Yishuin. The old butler replied, Indeed, they do. They have 2 bloodstone mines, which makes them very strong. This is also why they covet our bloodstone mines. As long as they can swallow our bloodstone mines, their strength will skyrocket and reach another level. When that time comes, they will not be able to find a match within 1,000,000 miles. As an old man in the sky-bearing fortress, it was normal for him to be so worried. However, Yi Shiwen did not care at all. He was just staying here temporarily. In 2 years, he might leave the blood prison. Regardless of whether it was the leader of the Divine Union, the Wasteland Underworld Hall Master, or the Abyssal Demon Master, they would all be strangled in the cradle. Now that he had such confidence, he was even confident that he could fight the leader of the Divine Union fair and square without using any other tricks. Oh no! Just as Yi Shiwen was about to continue his secluded cultivation, a noise was heard from outside. A pig demon at the second heaven of Paong realm stumbled in and said with a panicked expression, What's wrong? Yi Shiwen asked immediately. The demon looked at Yi Shiwen and then at the old butler, not knowing whether he should listen to Yi Shiwen. This is the 9th elder. You can report to him if you have anything to say, said the old butler. Now that he knew that the person in front of him was the 9th elder, the pig demon seemed to have found his backbone. Although he did not know why the 9th elder had been replaced by this person, since the old butler had said so, it could not be wrong. He immediately relaxed and said, Oh no, we have lost contact with the team that was sent to escort the Bloodstones back to the sky-bearing fortress. Lost contact? How could they have lost contact? Could they have encountered a blood demon? The old butler, who was very experienced, could not help but ask as he immediately listed all the possibilities of losing contact in his mind. No matter what, let's go and take a look first. Yi Shiwen was somewhat interested to encounter such a situation as soon as he arrived. He wanted to see what exactly was going on and who was stirring up trouble. Yes, sir. The old butler quickly picked a dozen experts from the sky-bearing fortress to follow Yi Shiwen. Although there was no mighty team, these people, even if they were soldiers, were all experts of the Legend Realm. One of them could fight against thousands of soldiers. Everyone rushed to the place where they had lost contact with the team at an extremely fast speed. However, as soon as they arrived, they found that it was a mess with corpses all over the ground. The dozen or so experts of the Legend Realm who were in charge of escorting the team had all died a violent death. Who did this? How could this be? Everyone behind Yi Shiwen was talking at once. The scene was really too tragic. Oh no, this is the work of the Flying Cloud Fortress, not the aftermath of the Blood Demon's rampage, said the old butler, who was very experienced. He only took a glance, and his expression suddenly changed. I've always said that you are very experienced and as cunning as a fox. Now it seems that it is true. You can tell that we did it just by looking at the scene. You are really rare. Accompanied by a burst of wild laughter, a figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 2175. It was a man with green scales all over his body. He was twice as tall as an ordinary person. He looked at Yi Shiwen and the others with an insolent smile. The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The old butler read out the name with a heavy expression. In comparison, the Flying Cloud Castle was much more powerful than the Sky Towering Castle. They had more top experts at the 9th level of Paong Realm than the Sky Towering Castle. This elder of the Flying Cloud Castle might only be ranked 8th, but he was not weak in terms of strength. Just like Yi Shiwen, who dared to look down on him even though he was only the 9th elder of the Sky Towering Castle. This was just a representation of the order of entry. Obviously, it was another tyrannical alien race. TSK. 8th brother, you are right. These people from the Sky Towering Castle are really brainless. They fell into our trap with just a little bait. It is said that the 9th elder of the Sky Towering Castle is new and inexperienced. He is also the weakest. By the time we kill him and occupy the Bloodstone Mine, It will be too late for the sky-towering castle to react. Huh? Another figure slowly appeared in the void. It was a middle-aged woman. However, she did not have legs. Instead, she had a huge snake tail. She was a snake demon. Venomous woman, the seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The old butler's face suddenly turned pale. It was not a big deal if there was only one. On his side, Yi Shiwen was also at the 9th level of Powong Realm. It could be said that they were evenly matched. However, with the appearance of another one, the situation changed in an instant. No matter how powerful Yi Shiwen was, it was impossible for him to deal with two experts at the same level. These two experts were very powerful. If it was 2 years ago, when he had not broken into the 7th level of Powong Realm, it would have been a little troublesome to deal with them. However, he did not care at all now. After breaking into the 7th level of Powong Realm, his strength was almost comparable to the 9th level of Powong Realm. In the entire Flying Cloud Castle, there was only one Powong Realm expert at the 9th level of Powong Realm, the Great Elder. As for the others, they could not cause him any trouble at all. Even if the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle came, he was not afraid at all. Although he was not completely sure that he could deal with Yao Xingqing and the others. Ordinary people at the peak of the 9th heaven of Powong Realm could not cause too much trouble to him. Once he condensed his Saber Dao incarnation, everything would immediately change, and his combat power would soar to a terrifying level. Damn it, this is bad. They've sealed off the entire space. We can't send a message back, even if we want to. The old butler's expression changed completely. The Bloodstone Mine was only 100,000 miles away from the Sky-Bearing Castle. Originally, as long as they released the news, the other elders would quickly come to support them. In fact, there was even a teleportation formation in the Bloodstone Mine that could be activated in an emergency. Hence, even though the distance was relatively far, it was not that easy to attack. However, now that they had been lured outside and the surrounding space had been sealed, they couldn't even send a message. Wouldn't that be equivalent to waiting for death? It seemed like the people from the Soaring Cloud Castle had gone to great lengths to deal with them. Yes, you're dead today. You can't even send a message out. By the time we completely occupy the Bloodstone Mine, it will be too late for the Sky-Bearing Castle to react. The 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle said with a sinister smile. Why? Is there no one else? Yi Shiwen sneered, seemingly a little dissatisfied with only 2 people coming. This immediately made the 2 elders of the Flying Cloud Castle, who thought that they had victory in their hands, furious. Yi Shiwen's attitude was simply looking down on them. One person is enough to deal with you. The 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle sneered. He was still trying to flirt, but in Yi Shiwen's eyes, it was extremely disgusting. Is there no one else? I'm so disappointed. Yi Shiwen chuckled. At this time, there were more figures around, all of whom were myth masters. However, compared to the 2 Powong realm experts, there was nothing to compare. What do you mean? The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle looked at Yi Shiwen vigilantly, not knowing what he meant. Because if only the 2 of you go to hell, wouldn't it be a little too lonely? Yi Shiwen said with a sinister smile. Good boy, insolent. The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly became furious. His whole body suddenly tore open the space on the spot, and in an instant, he had already blasted in front of Yi Shiwen. He intended to use his tyrannical body to forcefully eat Yi Shiwen. Boom! His big hand directly stretched out of the space, wanting to grab Yi Shiwen to death. However, his power was limited to the area around Yi Shiwen, and it was impossible for him to penetrate that layer of transparent barrier to blast Yi Shiwen's body. How is this possible? How can I not break the space? The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was suddenly stunned and revealed a completely inconceivable expression. Too slow, too slow. Yi Shiwen sneered and directly grabbed with one hand. On the spot, an astonishing blood-colored crack of martial arts tore open the space and instantly cut the air into pieces. It was very terrifying. Soul-crushing blood claw. The power of this claw was tyrannical to a terrifying extent. Those experts of the Flying Cloud Castle were shocked by the power of Yi Shiwen's claw, and they could not believe it. Yi Shiwen's soul-crushing blood claw directly grabbed in front of the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, and saw that the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle had directly emerged with countless layers of defense, and even a pseudo-divine tool armor. Such an armor was more difficult to make than ordinary pseudo-divine tools. Bang! 5 incomparably powerful claws forcibly grabbed the pseudo-divine tool armor, and a burst of cracking sound was heard. The pseudo-divine tool armor that seemed to be able to defend against the collapse of the world actually shattered inch by inch under Yi Shiwen's soul-crushing blood claw, and then the terrible power directly fell on the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. Boom! A terrifying mushroom cloud slowly rose up, and the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was blasted away on the spot. Although his life was saved by the pseudo-divine artifact armor, and he didn't die on the spot, he was still left with a huge, bloody scar on his body, and he screamed in pain. Whether it was in the eyes of the experts of the Sky-Bearing Castle or the Flying Cloud Castle, Yi Shiwen was simply as terrifying as the resurrection of a peerless demon god. In their hearts, they had a terrible idea of not daring to be enemies with him, especially the experts of the Sky-Bearing Castle. At this time, they finally understood why Yi Shiwen could replace the original Ninth Elder and become the new Ninth Elder. Even the Great Elder was far from such a terrifying strength. Yi Shiwen did not stop for a moment, and once again grabbed with his claw. Endless claw power directly tore the sky, like a fierce tiger attacking, and directly clawed the eighth elder of the Flying Cloud Castle to death. Compared to Yi Shiwen, whose combat strength was comparable to the peak of the ninth level of Powong Realm, the eighth elder was just an ordinary Powong Realm expert. He was still too inexperienced. Damn it! At this time, the seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle finally could not bear it anymore. In just a moment, as the top combat strength of the myths, the seventh elder was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. In fact, he was not even suppressed but defeated in a single move. How terrifying such strength was! It was simply unimaginable. At this time, the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle also recovered from the shock of Yi Shiwen after being reprimanded by the seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, and attacked one after another. They had no choice but to attack, even though they were not prepared. Yi Shiwen attacked ruthlessly, and directly displayed the invincible lunatic. In the face of the joint attack of many experts of the myths, he did not care at all. He directly withdrew the soul-crushing blood claw, and then switched it to the freedom claw. Whoosh! In the sky, an extremely violent sound of breaking through the air was heard. Yi Shiwen directly grabbed with his claw shadows that covered the sky, and directly enveloped all the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle. He was fearless. At this time, many of the remaining experts of the Flying Cloud Castle also attacked one after another. A terrifying martial arts torrent blasted the sky, and wherever it passed, the space would shatter in response. Boom! The scene was horrifying, as if it was the end of the world. A huge mushroom cloud rose, and the terrifying energy storm directly obliterated the atoms. The fierce collision between the two sides could almost be said to be evenly matched. Even Yi Shiwen had to take a few steps back. Die, five-colored sky-swallowing python. The seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle roared furiously. His face, which was originally quite charming, was completely distorted. Behind him, an incomparably huge python suddenly condensed with a schwab sound. The 5 colors of the python constantly rotated and flickered with a bewitching radiance. That incomparably terrifying snake body directly swung down towards Yi Shiwen. Ninth Elder, be careful. That is her original body. She has the bloodline of the ancient 7-colored sky-swallowing python. The old butler immediately reminded. He could not help but gasp when he saw that the 7th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle had directly transformed into her original body. Compared to when she was in human form, she was much more tyrannical. The 7-colored sky-swallowing python was also famous in ancient times. It was almost invincible. It did not need to transform into a divine dragon because its original existence was one of the most tyrannical exotic beasts. Although the seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle only had a portion of the seven-colored sky-swallowing python's bloodline, and could only use the state of the five-colored sky-swallowing python, it was still terrifying enough. The five-colored sky-swallowing python had just manifested, and it already had a terrifying momentum that could conquer the world and make all things in the world surrender. This was the invincible realm of an expert at the ninth heaven of the Pawang realm. This was the true strength of an expert at the ninth heaven of the Pawang realm. It was definitely not the kind of person who was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. It could only be said that Yi Shiwen was too abnormal. In the face of such a tyrannical state, the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle and Sky Bearing Castle all retreated, not daring to take it head-on. Chapter 2176. What a joke! 3 terrifying experts of the ninth heaven of Pawang realm were fighting here. Without any protective measures, almost everything within a radius of 1,000 miles would be smashed to pieces. Is this the seven-colored sky-swallowing python? The seven-colored sky-swallowing python was quite famous in the past, but it's still not enough. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. At this time, the huge tail, like an iron rod, directly swung down with boundless power. The terrifying aura in the process of swinging down, it was unknown how many times more tyrannical it was. Compared to the 8th elder of Soaring Cloud Castle, it was a lot more tyrannical. It was almost close to the level of the peak of Pawang Realm 9th level. As long as she could really break into the peak of Pawang Realm 9th level, then there was only one last step left to prove her Tao. Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. He operated the tyrant golden body, growing bigger and bigger. In the law world, a monstrous golden divinity directly spread out. There was a burst of golden aura, like the resurrection of the ancient demon god. The chi and blood in his body were also raised to the extreme at this moment. Inside his golden divinity, the 5 Emperor's battle suit had been put on, but at this time, it was completely rendered golden by the golden divinity. Now Yi Shiwen did not want to expose his identity. These obvious characteristics might be discovered by others, so he had to do some concealment work. Looking from afar, Yi Shiwen seemed to be wearing golden armor. His face was resolute, and his momentum was monstrous. He was domineering and invincible. He was like a tyrannical and invincible overlord. All those who stood in front of Yi Shiwen would be beheaded by him without any accident. Yi Shiwen finally made his move at that critical moment. He suddenly stretched out his hand and unleashed the soul-crushing blood claw. The golden crack on the claw expanded bigger and bigger. He then grabbed towards the terrifying tail that was swinging down towards him. Clang! 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 The collision between the two sides actually burst into sparks, as if 2 pieces of metal had collided fiercely. Then, boundless divine light splashed out, forming an incomparably powerful space storm, which spread out like stormy waves. The void collapsed inch by inch in the face of this terrible collision. Puff! Puff! Pooh! Some of the weaker experts from the Flying Cloud Castle and the Sky Bearing Castle were sent flying. They kept spurting out blood, and their eyes were filled with horror. They didn't expect that they couldn't even withstand the aftermath of the attack. The realm of Pawang and the realm below the realm of Pawang were on a completely different level. The gap between the 9th level of Pawang and the realm below the 9th level of Pawang was also completely different. This scene was too terrifying. One could almost see the primordial chaos swaying in the void. This attack seemed to be able to pierce through the universe. Everyone's eyes widened. Whether it was Yi Shiwen or the 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, both of them were extraordinarily fierce. However, everyone could still see that Yi Shiwen had the upper hand in this attack. The most direct evidence was that the 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle had been sent flying dozens of miles away. However, Yi Shiwen had remained motionless. Then, he took a step forward and transformed into an astonishing golden ray of light. He then rushed towards the 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle to kill him. When he galloped, he had the aura of a magnificent army, endless and terrifying to the extreme. It's time to end this. Die, Yi Shiwen said faintly. Then, he stomped his foot directly towards the seventh elder of the flying cloud castle. He annihilated the space and fell directly on the body of the seventh elder of the flying cloud castle, who had transformed into a five-colored heaven swallowing python. Boom! There was another terrifying loud noise, and a huge mushroom cloud slowly rose up. Puff! The seventh elder of the flying cloud castle finally couldn't bear it anymore. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her entire body fell to the ground. From afar, it looked like a huge mountain had crashed down. The entire ground was trembling, and a huge crack appeared. The seventh elder of the flying cloud castle was also severely injured in an instant. She kept spitting out blood, and her huge body was constantly twisting. Everyone kept quiet out of fear and took a breath of cold air. The seventh elder of the flying cloud castle was also a well-known existence in the flying cloud castle. Not only because she was a woman, but more importantly, her strength was also one of the strongest below the great elder of the flying cloud castle. But now, she was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. What a heaven-defying thing this was. Invincible. He really has an invincible posture. This is a sign of the Tao-proving posture. The old steward couldn't help but say. Being able to cultivate to this level, he naturally wouldn't be a person with shallow knowledge. However, there were many experts at the ninth heavenly layer of Paong realm, but only a few of them could prove their Tao. The most important thing was to have this kind of invincible posture. Any expert who proved their Tao was an invincible existence. Yi Shiwen's complexion didn't change. He didn't know when a golden long sword had appeared in his hand. It stood erect above his open palm and rotated fiercely. An astonishing sword key splashed out and rotated continuously in his hand. Whoosh! The sword chi directly slashed down, and its target was the seventh elder of the flying cloud castle. This was the rhythm of killing him. Everyone was stunned. Yi Shiwen had actually dared to kill an elder of the flying cloud castle. This was simply too crazy. Even the experts of the towering sky castle were completely shocked. Compared to Yi Shiwen's audacity, they were nothing. They were just dwarfs in the presence of a great sorcerer. Although Yi Shiwen had such strength, the fact that he had such a heart made their scalp tingle. Stop! The eighth elder of the flying cloud castle let out a loud shout. He had finally caught his breath. Then he launched his attack. A dreadful divine power pervaded the air. It seemed as if it could collapse the heavens and shake the vault of heaven. Suddenly, a huge flag flew over. It swept out endless divine radiance towards Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if it wanted to sweep him into four directions. That's the 8th Division Celestial Flag. The old butler exclaimed, Ninth Elder, be careful. This is the instrument of the great elder of the flying cloud castle, the 8th Division Celestial Flag. It's a broken divine instrument. You must be careful. He was experienced and knowledgeable. He had once built the 8th Division Celestial Flag to display its power. That time, it brought him a very shocking shock. This was a broken divine instrument. It was much more tyrannical than ordinary pseudo-divine instruments. The entire flag was engraved with countless lines of law, stimulating an incomparably powerful power. Endless divine power was emitted, as if a god had been resurrected. How is this possible? Isn't the 8th Division Celestial Flag the instrument of the great elder of the flying cloud castle? It has never been lent out. How could it be lent out at this time? It seems that they are determined to get our bloodstone mine. Damn it, they already have 2 bloodstone mines. Why do they still want to rob us of our bloodstone mine? They're trying to force us into a corner. Yi Shiwen was expressionless. Countless golden divinities flowed all over his body. He grabbed a long sword in his hand and directly slashed at the 8th Division Celestial Flag. The blow cut through the sky and the sky. It was as brilliant as a comet hitting the ground. Boom! There was a loud, muffled sound. It was as if the entire universe was shaking. This was a shocking collision. The smoke and dust dispersed. Countless people looked over and saw that even though it had faced this terrible blow, the 8th Division Celestial Flag was still unscathed. Although Yi Shiwen had broken the attack of the 8th Division Celestial Flag, It seemed that he could not do anything to it. Ah, you have surprised me. But it's useless. It's impossible for you to break the 8-division celestial flag of our great elder. I originally brought it out to prevent any accidents. I wanted to use Ollie to deal with your great elder, but it seems that it's not necessary now. It should be enough to deal with you. You can die in peace under this 8-division celestial flag. The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle laughed loudly. In the void, he held a flag in his hand. As he waved it, countless divine rays splashed out and condensed into a huge martial arts torrent in the void. With an unparalleled momentum, it blasted towards Yi Shiwen. This was an extremely terrifying power. It directly swept out and tore a huge crack in the void. The scene was unimaginable. Ha ha, this is the consequence of going against our soaring cloud castle. No one can save you today. Go to hell. The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle grinned. He wanted to watch Yi Shiwen die, but his expression immediately changed. He saw that the martial arts torrent directly blasted on Yi Shiwen's body, but it seemed to be absorbed by a powerful force. It could not really cause any harm to him at all. How is this possible? It's impossible. How can you block the bombardment of the 8-division celestial flag? He looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Yi Shiwen had directly blocked this terrible torrent. Seeing this appalling scene, many people felt like they were about to faint. Was he still human? Was he some kind of monster? A damaged divine artifact. Although it would appear that it was damaged, it was not something that ordinary people could compare with. In fact, it was even more terrifying than a pseudo-divine artifact. At the end of the day, a pseudo-divine artifact was not a true divine artifact. On the other hand, a damaged divine artifact was a true divine artifact. How could ordinary people fight against a divine artifact that possessed divine might? It was unbelievable that Yi Shiwen could take it head-on. I see. It is indeed very powerful, but it's a pity that it's in your hands. Yi Shiwen said lightly. What did you say? Die. The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was shocked and angry. He waved the flag in his hand frantically. Chapter 2177. Boom! Another surge of divine might rose into the sky. Within Yi Shiwen's body, an equally powerful divine might rose, forcibly resisting the endless divine might of the 8-division celestial sphere flag. Divine tool, it's actually another divine tool. Many mythical masters felt like they were going crazy. Even if they were mythical masters, not everyone had the opportunity to see a real divine tool. Even if it was an incomplete divine tool, it was not something they could contend with at all. If it was a complete divine tool, it would not be easy for the two of them to activate it. However, if it was just an incomplete divine tool, they could still fully activate its great power. Boom! 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 Two incomparably powerful, incomplete divine tools rose in the sky and collided fiercely above the sky. The divine might collided fiercely, bursting out endless divine light. Die! At this time, the 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly jumped out from the ground, ignited his chi and blood, and suddenly attacked Yi Shiwen. Despicable! The old butler could not help but shout, but it was useless. Although the 7th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, who had transformed into the 5-colored sky swallowing python, was beaten up by Yi Shiwen, it did not mean that he was weak. It was just that Yi Shiwen was too strong. In just an instant, the 5-colored sky swallowing python directly opened its mouth, and countless fluctuations began to sway in its mouth. In an instant, a 5-colored torrent was blasted directly towards Yi Shiwen. You think you can hurt me? Yi Shiwen's eyes widened in anger. He wasn't afraid at all. He directly grabbed an amazing sword aura from the void. With the support of an amazing sword intention, the sword aura instantly slashed towards the 5-colored torrent that had blasted out. Boom! The sword principle and the 5-colored light overflowed in the air, shattering the void, directly turning the surroundings into a mass of chaos. This was a truly terrifying battle. Both sides had fought to the extreme, not giving each other any chance to hold back at all. Yi Shiwen's whole body was covered in golden light, like a golden overlord, monstrous spiritual power, and golden chi and blood dyed the entire world. He directly blasted towards the five-colored sky, swallowing Python. I originally planned to deal with you later, but since you've decided to come to my door to die, don't blame me. Yi Shiwen ignored the splashing multicolored divine radiance. His strongest point was undoubtedly his powerful body. So, he would naturally utilize it to the extreme. Bang! Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. He didn't use any martial arts moves. He just used his fist to attack the 5-colored heaven swallowing Python's body. Bang! The 5-colored heaven swallowing Python let out a blood-curdling scream. Its entire body was almost smashed by Yi Shiwen's punch. It screamed endlessly, and its mountain-like huge body was twisted together, smashing into the ground. This Yi Shiwen is truly a lawless lord. Our towering sky castle has an extraordinary lord. He doesn't even care about the people of the flying cloud castle. He didn't hesitate at all. He said that he would kill them. He's really a lawless existence. I wouldn't be surprised if he dares to take this banner and flatten the flying cloud castle. This 9th elder really has a powerful background. Whether it's his martial arts or his martial instruments, they're all extremely tyrannical. There's actually such a master. I've never heard of him before. There are too many masters in this world. The people of the towering sky castle couldn't help but sigh. However, compared to the people of the flying cloud castle, they were undoubtedly much calmer. Originally, they were on tenterhooks, fearing that they would be killed by the flying cloud castle. But now, the situation had completely reversed, and they had the upper hand. The people of the flying cloud castle were pale, but they didn't dare to leave because the 2 elders were still there. Moreover, many masters of the towering sky castle were staring at them, not letting them escape. They almost died in the hands of these masters of the flying cloud castle. How could these masters of the towering sky castle be in a good mood? Now that the situation had reversed, how could they let them escape? Yi Shiwen almost killed the 5-colored devouring python with a punch. On the other side, the 8th elder of the flying cloud castle attacked Yi Shiwen like a madman. He knew very well that if he was alone, he would most likely die in Yi Shiwen's hands. He couldn't let Yi Shiwen go. The 8th Division celestial flag in his hand was constantly waving. Countless chaotic auras were thrown out, covering the sky and covering the earth like monstrous waves. It was incomparably terrifying and directly smashed the void into pieces. Yi Shiwen didn't give in at all. The devil beckoning banner in his hand was also constantly swaying. The golden vitality was surging unceasingly, like stormy waves washing his body. In mid-air, he was constantly attacking the 8th Division turbid heaven flag, not giving in at all. That's all there is to it. Die! Yi Shiwen directly took a step in the void. He finally couldn't wait any longer. He wanted to end things with the 8th elder of the flying cloud castle. The auras of his whole body surged, blocking the heaven and earth. They were protected by the demon calling banner. The devil auras that burst out constantly collided with the chaotic auras of the 8th Division celestial flag. The power of the demon calling banner had returned to the extreme in his hands. As for Yi Shiwen himself, he casually grabbed the soul-crushing blood claw. Every time the soul-crushing blood claw destroyed a large area of the chaotic auras, he continued to attack the 8th elder of the flying cloud castle. I'll fight with you. I don't believe that the 8th Division celestial flag is worse than you, the 8th elder of the flying cloud castle said while gritting his teeth. He thought that he would win this time. Who knew that there would be such an unforeseen event? He was going to suffer a great loss in the hands of Yi Shiwen. If this continued, it would be very normal for him to be beaten to death. He believed that the flying cloud castle would soon receive the news and rush over. After all, they were only hundreds of thousands of miles away. The news that he had used the 8th Division celestial flag would soon reach the great elder of the flying cloud castle. At that time, the flying cloud castle should soon know that he was in big trouble. Although it was very likely that he would lose face and it would be impossible for him to complete the mission, For now, preserving his life was more important than anything else. The mission and the like were nothing. However, the bigger problem was that this place was only hundreds of thousands of miles away from the sky-bearing castle. In such an intense battle, whatever aura isolation formation he had previously set up was ineffective. At this time, the sky-bearing castle should soon receive the news and rush over. Even so, he hoped that a few more people from the sky-bearing castle would come quickly. At least, those people would know that the flying cloud castle was powerful and would not dare to deal with them casually. However, this guy in front of him did not care at all. As the saying goes, the arrogant are afraid of the stupid, and the stupid are afraid of the reckless. The guy in front of him was both stupid and stupid. However, he did not know that Yi Shiwen was not a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. Instead, he had great strength and confidence. Therefore, he was not afraid at all. This was the confidence of a true powerhouse. At this time, the seventh elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was punched by Yi Shiwen again. His entire body was about to fall apart. He could not care less. The only person he could rely on was himself. A rare look of suffering appeared on his face. This human in front of him was really too powerful. Even when he did not have a divine tool, this guy actually used his physical body to take on the attacks. Moreover, he was actually fine. He was simply a monster in human form. If it was not for the restraint of the 8th Division Celestial Flag, he would probably have been crushed to death in an instant. It was just that the 8th Division Celestial Flag was not his divine tool after all. It could not display its full power. Therefore, it could only barely protect itself. In front of Yi Shiwen's offensive, it trembled like weeds. Yi Shiwen was like a god. He crushed everything along the way and swept across everything. The raging primal chaos energy was annihilated in an instant wherever he went. It couldn't even cause a ripple. The countless spaces couldn't stop his footsteps either. He was like a machine that crushed everything in its path. Some chaotic aura swept over from the sky, but it was easily extinguished by Yi Shiwen. It was as if the 5 bloody claw shadows in front of him were like 5 insurmountable mountains. There was no way to cross over them. Damn it, why is this happening? What kind of monster are you? Why can't even divine tools stop you? The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle finally showed a look of horror. His face was already pale. With his skill, it was very difficult for him to activate a divine tool that was not his own, not to mention such an intense battle. The real elemental energy generated in his body could not keep up with his consumption. In contrast, Yi Shiwen, who was also activating a divine tool, had surging real elemental energy in his body. It was like a long river rushing out and sprinkling casually. He was simply a monster. A warrior at the 7th level of the Paong realm was actually more profound than him, a master at the 9th level of the Paong realm. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "If it is a real divine tool, of course, it can stop me. But you are still far from it." His hands were like a millstone that could destroy the world, crushing all the illusions and efforts of the 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. He directly grabbed and extinguished the protective chaotic aura in front of him. Then, he directly slapped the chest of the 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. Bang! The chest of the 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was directly smashed like a piece of paper. It was smashed and caved in. Blood splashed out on the spot. This game is over. Yi Shiwen immediately followed up with a soul-crushing blood claw. The 8th elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was directly crushed into a mass of blood mist on the spot. His spirit was completely destroyed. He could not be more dead. Chapter 2178. This person is too terrifying. How can he be so strong? We are no match for him at all. Even the Great Elder isn't this terrifying. Many of the remaining experts of the Flying Cloud Castle had a mental breakdown after witnessing the death of the 8th Elder. The person in front of them was not someone they could compare to. They did not even have the qualifications to look up to him. They were defeated this time. They did not even have the strength to fight back. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen had actually extended his hand towards the 8th Division Celestial Sphere flag. He was actually going to collect the 8th Division Celestial Sphere flag. If an ordinary person dared to touch the 8-division celestial sphere flag, they would undoubtedly be courting death. They did not have the ability to do so at all. They would only be destroyed by the restriction inside the 8-division celestial sphere flag. However, the person in front of them was completely different. He had the guts and the ability to do so. Although the divine might of a defective artifact was very powerful, he was not afraid at all. He was not afraid even when someone was controlling it. He was not afraid at all when there was no one controlling it. Moreover, he also had a defective artifact. As long as he used the demon beckoning banner to suppress the 8-division celestial sphere flag, he could easily subdue the 8-division celestial sphere flag after sacrificial refining. After all, it was only a defective artifact. The spirit within it had long been annihilated. Otherwise, it would not have been so easily used by the Flying Cloud Castle. If such a thing were to happen, they could imagine how terrifying the Great Elder's anger would be when they returned. Most importantly, without the 8-division celestial sphere flag, the Great Elder's strength would drop a lot. It would also be a huge blow to the Flying Cloud Castle. Although it would not be a fatal blow, it could not be helped that the deterrence of the Flying Cloud Castle would drop by a level. Go to hell. I will never let you succeed. The 5-colored sky devouring python spat out a 5-colored divine radiance directly towards Yi Shiwen. It did not give Yi Shiwen a chance. Get out of my way. Yi Shiwen casually slapped the 5-colored divine radiance and blew it up. However, taking advantage of this opportunity, the 5-colored sky devouring python used its spirit to connect with the 8-division celestial sphere flag. It directly took control of the 8-division celestial sphere flag. Then, it burst out an astonishing amount of chaotic energy and bombarded in all directions. Boom! The void was annihilated and collapsed inch by inch. It was like a landslide, and a tsunami-like power rushed towards Yi Shiwen. You want to escape with just you? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer. He was protected by the devil beckoning banner. This monstrous power simply couldn't rush into his surroundings. Then, he used his golden hand to grab the 8-division spherical heaven flag. At this moment, the 8-divisional chaos flag used its chaotic chi to cut open a spatial rift. Under the control of the 5-colored sky-devouring python, it was about to escape into it. Don't even think about leaving, Yi Shiwen shouted and chased after it directly. He took a step forward and turned into a golden streamer. He instantly arrived in front of the 5-colored heaven-swallowing python. Although he hadn't unfurled his devil wings, his understanding of movement techniques had already reached a shocking level. Even without the devil wings, his speed was still top-notch. He could travel 100,000 miles in a flash, which was the limit of his speed. The 5-colored heaven-swallowing python screamed when it saw that Yi Shiwen was not willing to let them go and almost instantly chased after them. Monster! Go to hell! She was already scared to death by Yi Shiwen. She never thought that she would encounter such a monster one day. He even sacrificed a divine tool, but she couldn't take it down. This was a powerful existence that she had never encountered before. In the past, no matter what kind of existence it was nothing in front of a divine tool. Although the other party also had a divine tool, it couldn't ignore his tyrannical strength. Even if I die, I won't let you succeed. Our great elder will definitely avenge us. She was already crazy. She directly whipped the 8-division spherical heaven flag into the spatial channel with her tail and disappeared in a moment. I think you're courting death. Yi Shiwen was furious. He watched the cooked duck fly away. He was originally determined to get the 8-division spherical heaven flag. He planned to let the demon beckoning banner directly swallow the 8-division spherical heaven flag. In that case, the demon beckoning banner would definitely be able to go further and directly return to the level of a real divine tool. Then, he would have one more trump card. He would use it sooner or later in the future. Who would have thought that the 8-division spherical heaven flag would actually fly away in front of him? He was simply furious to the extreme. You monster, go to hell! The 5-colored heaven-swallowing python went crazy. The power of her whole body was surging wildly, and then instantly spread out in all directions. Boom! The 5-colored heaven-swallowing python actually self-detonated and directly turned into a super-large mushroom cloud of a nuclear bomb. It slowly rose up and instantly drowned everything within a radius of 10,000 miles. Even with Yi Shiwen's tyrannical physical body, he was directly pushed back thousands of miles. He was also blasted into a sorry state. Even the others at this time were immediately blasted into serious injuries. Although they were already far enough away, they were still injured by the shockwave. In addition, Yi Shiwen extended his domain in time to protect them, so they were only injured by the shockwave. As for those from the Flying Cloud Fortress, they were not so lucky. They were directly annihilated by the self-detonation. As for the experts from the Sky-Bearing Fortress, after recuperating their bodies, they were completely dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. How tyrannical was Yi Shiwen, an expert at the 9th level of Paoang Realm? It could be said that none of the experts who could cultivate to this level were lucky. Without exception, all of them were people with firm minds. As long as there was a little hope of survival, they would not choose to self-detonate, which was a method that killed 1,000 enemies and sacrificed 800 of their own. This could only mean that the 5-colored heaven-swallowing python had been beaten by Yi Shiwen to the point that it had completely lost its temper and fighting spirit. That was why it used the most intense method to retaliate against Yi Shiwen. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen was actually only forced to retreat. It could not even injure Yi Shiwen. How strong was he exactly? In their hearts, Yi Shiwen was probably no different from an invincible demon. Such a terrifying scene was deeply engraved in the depths of their souls. They would never forget it in this life. Originally, many people were not very convinced by this new 9th Elder, but now he suddenly didn't have any other thoughts. What a joke! At this time, Yi Shiwen didn't look for trouble with them. It was already very good. How could they still dare to resist Yi Shiwen? Yi Shiwen did not move for a while. Although the explosion just now did not injure him, how could it not affect him at all? It directly caused his blood to surge. If not for the demon's summoning banner's protection, no matter how tyrannical his physical body was, it would not be unaffected at all. The power of a Paoang Realm 9th level expert's self-detonation was stronger than the full blow of a Paoang Realm Peak 9th level expert. Although the people of Flying Cloud Castle were all killed now, the 8-component heaven flag that he wanted the most had suddenly disappeared. He could not get it. If he could get the 8-component heaven flag and let the demon's summoning banner devour it, he could then kill everyone in Flying Cloud Castle by himself. However, now that the 8-component heaven flag had escaped, it must have returned to the hands of the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. Therefore, he was not very confident. After all, the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was the true owner of the 8-component heaven flag. In his hands, the power that the 8-component heaven flag could display was far beyond that of the 8th Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. In addition, the strength of the Great Elder of Flying Cloud Castle was probably not inferior to the current Yi Shiwen. Although he was not afraid, he could not really do anything to the Great Elder of Flying Cloud Castle. He could only give up the idea of dealing with Flying Cloud Castle for now. Moreover, there was no grudge between the two sides. His top priority now was to condense the Saber Dao incarnation. As long as he had the Saber Dao incarnation, then no powerful enemy would be a match for him. Let's go back. Due to the self-detonation of the 7-colored sky-devouring python, this space was directly swept away. There was no harvest at all. Yi Shiwen could only bring them back to the Bloodstone Mine first. The news spread as fast as it could. Not only were the people from the Sky-Bearing Fortress and the Flying Cloud Fortress shocked, but everyone in the vicinity was also shocked. No one had expected things to turn out this way. The Flying Cloud Castle was aggressively trying to snatch the Bloodstone Mine of Sky-Bearing Castle. At first, everyone had only one feeling when they heard the news. Sky-Bearing Castle was finished. It went without saying how important the Bloodstone Mine was to the Sky-Bearing Fortress. It was extremely important and could even be said to be its lifeline, its source. Without this Bloodstone Mine, the Sky-Bearing Fortress would no longer be able to stand on its own. Many people were also wondering if Sky-Bearing Castle was really going to be destroyed. Without the Bloodstone Mine, even if the people of Flying Cloud Castle did not attack for a while, sky-bearing castle would not be able to hold on for long. It would naturally collapse. This was not the first time such a situation had happened. However, the news that came later completely shocked them. It could even be said that they were a little dumbfounded. A person called Deadly Young Master had appeared out of nowhere and killed 2 experts of Flying Cloud Castle in an instant. Moreover, they were 2 top-notch experts at the 9th level of the Pawang realm. Even though the people from the Soaring Cloud Castle were completely annihilated and no one knew the exact situation, everyone was clear that the strength of Mr. Deadly, who possessed such strength, was far beyond their imagination. A peerless expert slowly rose up. Chapter 2179. The name, Young Master Killer, spread throughout the entire region in a single night. Everyone knew that such a ruthless character had arrived. Even in the Blood Prison, the experts of the Pawang Realm Ninth Heaven were still the minority among the minority. They could only be regarded as the existence of a phoenix feather and a unicorn horn. The fall of any one of them was regarded as a major event that countless people paid attention to. What's more, 2 of them had fallen in one go. This was truly a major event. The Soaring Cloud Fortress was also regarded as a powerful force in the nearby regions. With 15 powerful experts of the Pawang Realm Ninth Heaven guarding them, they had absolute confidence in facing any challenges. Whether it was the warriors of other clans, the omnipresent blood demons in the Blood Prison, or the Blood Demon Tide, none of them posed a real threat to them. Unless there were experts of Dao confirmation level taking action, otherwise it would not be a problem. This time, they had suffered a huge loss. 2 experts of the Pawang Realm Ninth Heaven had fallen. In any case, it could be said that their vitality had been greatly damaged. What was even more terrifying was that these 2 peerless experts had been killed by young Master Lifestealer alone. It was as if he had not expended any effort at all. Although he did not know the exact details, the fact that Soaring Cloud Castle had not been able to send reinforcements in time was enough to tell that the battle had probably ended very quickly. From this, it could also prove how terrifying Yi Shiwen was. He could actually kill 2 experts of the Pawang Realm Ninth Heaven in such a short period of time. However, as Yi Shiwen's strong performance in the sky-bearing fortress was dug out, all of this seemed to be very normal. The original 9th Elder of the sky-bearing fortress was also defeated by him as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. It could be said that it was almost effortless. From the looks of it, the matter of him casually taking care of the 2 experts was probably not a lie. Subsequently, even more shocking news came out. At that time, the 2 elders of the Soaring Cloud Fortress went on the expedition with a defective divine tool. Facing 2 experts of the Pawang Realm Ninth Heaven with a defective divine tool, they could at least kill 3 to 4 experts of this level at the same time. One should know that there were only 9 experts in the sky-bearing fortress in total. It was impossible to send half of the people here to guard the place. This was because the sky-bearing fortress still needed people to guard it, and most of the time, they still needed to cultivate. Therefore, the conquest operation this time could be said to be determined to succeed, with no possibility of failure. But the result was still like this, a failure. Everyone's evaluation of Yi Shiwen suddenly rose to a whole new level. This was not something that an ordinary Pawang 9th level expert could achieve. In most people's opinion, Yi Shiwen could even be compared to the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. He was originally the most tyrannical existence in this region. However, he had suddenly become the person that everyone couldn't afford to provoke. In order to defeat or even kill such an opponent, they would need at least 3 to 5 existences at the 9th heaven of the Pawang realm to guarantee a chance of victory. However, in this way, the number of top-notch experts in the Soaring Cloud Castle was almost at an advantage compared to the Sky-Bearing Castle. They originally had 15 existences at the 9th heaven of the Pawang realm, but now only 13 were left. They had lost 2, and both of them were experts. This was a huge loss. It could even be said to be a blow to their vitality. They suddenly lost their overwhelming advantage against the Sky-Bearing Castle. To the Sky-Bearing Fortress, this was undoubtedly great news. They had always been under the threat of the Flying Cloud Fortress, and now they had gotten rid of some of that threat. although it couldn't be said that they had reached a balance of power, but it was enough, especially with a top-notch expert like Yi Shiwen keeping watch. Their safety had undoubtedly been greatly guaranteed. Facing such a powerful existence who could easily kill more than two experts, the Flying Cloud Castle unexpectedly dealt with it coldly. They did not plan to retaliate right from the start. After all, this matter was fundamentally because they had invaded the bloodstone mine of the sky-bearing castle. This kind of behavior was very normal in the blood prison. However, it would be too embarrassing if they refused to let go because of this matter. The most important thing was that they weren't completely sure that they could deal with Yi Shiwen. After all, even the divine tool in their hands had failed. In fact, they almost couldn't even return the 8-sex spherical heaven flag. This incident had taught them a great lesson. Therefore, although such an incident had happened, the sky-bearing castle trusted Yi Shiwen very much. At the very least, he could stop the Flying Cloud Castle surprise attack by himself. This was also a fact. Yi Shiwen did not care about the many comments from the outside world. For him, the most important thing at present was to condense the Saber Dao incarnation. As long as he could condense the Saber Dao incarnation, his strength would undergo an earth-shaking change. No one below the mythical level would be a match for him, and he would no longer have anything to fear. This was more important than anything else. As long as he had such powerful strength, all problems would be easily solved. After he returned, he directly hid in the Bloodstone Mine. He wanted to use the energy of the Bloodstone Mine to condense his third martial Dao incarnation. This was a crucial step for him. It was far more than just increasing his combat power. The condensation of each martial Dao incarnation required an unimaginable understanding of martial arts to be possible. Similarly, the addition of each martial Dao incarnation was much more difficult than the original. The demand for martial arts understanding would also increase exponentially. Only in this way could it be possible to conduct a crazy experiment. It was something that ordinary people did not even dare to think about. It was because his realm was too far apart. There was still a long way to go before he reached the peak of the mythical level. He might not be able to achieve it in a short period of time. However, time waits for no man. Although the plan was a little crazy in Yi Shiwen's heart, it was a helpless choice. Once it was achieved, his strength would also be unprecedented. This was also the greatest benefit of being stationed in the Bloodstone Mine. They could use the Bloodstone Origin Stones in the mine to cultivate. The Bloodstone Origin Stones in the mine had not been refined to remove impurities, so it was difficult to directly absorb them. The process was very troublesome. Therefore, in the eyes of the people from the sky-bearing castle, even if Yi Shiwen absorbed the bloodstones in the mine, he would not be able to absorb much. After all, everyone came here like this. Even if there was a little more than usual, it would not be much. However, they did not know that Yi Shiwen's great transformation technique was far more terrifying than they imagined. He sat cross-legged in the depths of the Bloodstone Mine. After the Flying Cloud Castle's raid, the people from the sky-bearing castle who were mining did not dare to disturb him. This was also convenient for Yi Shiwen to do things. He sat cross-legged and began to use the great transformation technique after arranging a formation. Rumble! The surrounding Bloodstone Mine was rumbling and shaking. Countless blood chi directly turned into a long river of blood chi under the guidance of Yi Shiwen's great transformation technique. It flowed into Yi Shiwen's body. It did not even need to go through any purification and tempering. The overbearingness of the great transformation technique could be seen. More and more blood chi flowed into his body. It only passed through his body once before all of it rushed into the mysterious space. Although his talent was considered extraordinary now, it would take at least hundreds of years to completely comprehend Blade Dao and condense an incarnation without the help of the mysterious space. It might even take far more than that. Therefore, the most important thing was to borrow the powerful deduction ability of the mysterious space. With the help of an entire bloodstone mine, Yi Shiwen naturally had no scruples when he deduced. In his mind, countless principles, rules, and secrets of the Blade Way were continuously deduced. Then, they turned into runes and poured into Yi Shiwen's mind. This made his understanding of the Blade Way improve at an astonishing speed. Around his body, streaks of blade chi splashed out and formed a huge blade Dao domain around him. It was expanding in all directions. His blade chi also became sharper and sharper, as if it was going to completely shatter the world. The mythical masters who were mining outside did not know what was happening inside, but they did not dare to approach at all. Through the previous events, it had completely told them that the strength that Yi Shiwen possessed was far beyond what they could contend with. They did not even dare to ask. Fortunately, the area that Yi Shiwen was in was the deepest part of the Bloodstone mine. Yi Shiwen had even opened up a part of it, so it did not affect them from mining outside. In fact, it did not make any difference. Time passed day by day, in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. The entire sky-bearing fortress seemed to be in a peaceful time, passing day by day. Boom! Suddenly, a huge roar came from above the Bloodstone mine. A terrifying force fell like a ball of thunder, directly smashing the Bloodstone mine and causing it to rumble like an earthquake. From today onwards, this Bloodstone mine belongs to the Soaring Cloud Fortress. All of you surrender, or you will die. A stern voice came down from the sky. People of the Soaring Cloud Fortress, how dare you be so presumptuous here? Aren't you afraid of death? After a loud shout, the old butler flew out from his closed-door training. Many figures flew out, and all of them were the many masters of the sky-bearing fortress stationed here. The old butler looked up, and his face suddenly turned ugly. In the void, he saw hundreds of figures floating in the void, and among them, there were 5 tyrannical masters of the Paong realm 9th level. Their auras were tyrannical, and they completely released their power. Chapter 2180. 5 experts at the peak of Paong realm. If it was in the past, they would not only be drenched in cold sweat, they might even kneel down. Any one of them could wipe out the entire Bloodstone mine. With such a lineup, there was no other choice but to ask for reinforcements from the sky-bearing castle. Fortunately, they were in the Bloodstone mine this time, so there was no lack of means to contact the outside world. If they were forced, they could even pay a price to use the directional transmission matrix. Most importantly, there was an extremely powerful Yi Shiwen in the Bloodstone mine. If they had not personally witnessed Yi Shiwen's combat power, they would not believe that someone could be so tyrannical. It could be said that Yi Shiwen had defeated the 2 experts with ease. With Yi Shiwen in charge, they were undoubtedly more confident. As long as they delayed for a little time, they would naturally be fine according to their past experiences. However, the 5 experts at the peak of Paong realm still made him feel like he had fallen into an ice cave. In any case, this was not a powerful force that he could fight against. However, he was confident and naturally had no fear. He squinted his eyes and looked at the 5 incomparably powerful figures floating in the void. He said, "Do you want to die? Don't you know that the deadly young master is guarding here? I want to see who this deadly young master is. Don't think that you will get lucky. The reinforcements from the sky-bearing castle that you have high hopes for will not come. Now, Terman can't even take care of himself. I will give you a chance. If you are willing to surrender, we can spare your lives. We also need people to mine for us. However, if you resist, then don't blame us for being rude." At this moment, among the 5 experts at the pinnacle of the Paong realm, the elder who was the leader spoke. "Even the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle has come. You are really ambitious." The old butler recognized the origin of this elder at a glance. He was the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. His strength was also extremely tyrannical. Compared to the great elder, the only difference was that he did not have a damaged divine tool. Hearing this, many people from the sky-bearing castle were suddenly shaken. Indeed, if the Flying Cloud Castle was not fully prepared, they would not take the initiative to attack the Bloodstone mine. If it was just a simple attack by 5 experts, it would completely alarm the sky-bearing castle. However, the people from the sky-bearing fortress had yet to arrive. Could something have really happened? Their relationship with the sky-brokenness fortress was one of mutual dependence. They were not nurtured by the sky-brokenness fortress, and they had never thought of fighting to the death for the sky broke in his fortress. Cut the crap. I'll give you 3 seconds. If you don't surrender, you'll die. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle said coldly. 3. Everyone, don't be bewitched by him. He's lying to us. 2. 1. Since you refuse to surrender, I will send you to hell. The second elder of Soaring Cloud Castle sneered. The expressions of the people from the sky-bearing castle changed drastically. None of them wanted to die for the sky-bearing castle. At this moment, a cold snort was heard from within. I'd like to see who's going to hell. A cold voice came from within the Bloodstone mine. Everyone's faces suddenly revealed an expression of surprise and joy. This voice was definitely Yishiwen's. They would never forget this voice. To them, this voice was like the sound of heaven, and it had saved them from this endless suffering. Trying to act mysterious. You're that young Master Deadly, right? I'd like to see just how strong you are. The second elder of the Soaring Cloud Fortress could immediately tell that the voice belonged to the 9th elder of the Sky-bearing Fortress, young Master Lifestealer, whose name had shaken the region recently. It would have been fine if it was anyone else, but the deadly young master's reputation was built on the corpses of the Flying Cloud Castle. Even a powerful force like the Flying Cloud Castle would feel extremely distressed at the loss of 2 Powong Realm experts and dozens of Powong Realm experts. Therefore, the entire sky-bearing fortress regarded Yishiwen as a pillar that supported the sky. However, the entire Flying Cloud Castle regarded Yishiwen as an enemy. They could not wait to tear him into pieces to vent their anger. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle immediately conjured a monstrous giant hand and pressed it down abruptly. Boom! The sky suddenly collapsed. Everything collapsed in an instant. He was like an ancient demon god that created a gap in the sky and earth. Countless lightning powers circled around and formed a long river that rushed down. He wanted to create a huge crack in the Bloodstone mine. In any case, these ores were still there. It didn't matter how they were destroyed. What kind of scene was this? The void collapsed from the inside as countless lightning powers poured in. The attainment of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle and the power of lightning was indeed tyrannical. So strong! How can there be such tyrannical power? The people of the sky-bearing fortress were completely pale when they saw this scene. They were also in the myth realm, but they were far inferior to the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. However, just when everyone thought that the lightning powers were about to wreak havoc, they saw a huge vortex appear on the Bloodstone mine. A terrifying energy constantly rotated in the entire vortex. The power of thunder that surged in was completely absorbed by the huge whirlpool. It couldn't cause any damage to the entire Bloodstone mine at all. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle couldn't help but look unsightly. Yishiwen's strength had far exceeded his initial expectations. In that battle, the people of the Flying Cloud Castle had been completely annihilated, and the people of the Sky-bearing Castle couldn't possibly go around talking nonsense. Therefore, the outcome of that battle was still a mystery. No one knew how strong Yishiwen was. However, to be on the safe side, they had come out in full force this time. They were divided into 2 teams. For them, 5 experts of the 9th level of Powong Realm were enough to sweep away any strong enemy. No one would be surprised. Come out if you have the guts, one of the elders of the Flying Cloud Castle shouted. As you wish. In an instant, everyone could only see a bolt of lightning breaking through the void. Then, this bolt of lightning turned into a terrifying spear and instantly blasted towards the elder from the Flying Cloud Fortress. Bang! The long spear directly pierced through the elder of the Flying Cloud Castle and caused a shocking explosion. The sky and earth changed color, and the elder exploded on the spot. An expert of the 9th level of Powong Realm had fallen. All of this happened too quickly. It was so fast that no one could react. With just one move, a master of the 9th level of Powong Realm was blasted to death. When the lightning dissipated, Yishiwen's figure slowly appeared. He was holding a long spear that was condensed from lightning in his hand. Faintly, there was the roar of a fierce beast coming from it. The complexion of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly changed. Not only because Yi Shiwen had easily defeated an expert of the Powong realm 9th level, but more importantly, he clearly felt a familiar feeling from the long spear in Yi Shiwen's hand and his own power of thunder. In other words, the person in front of him had used his martial power to temper his long spear. It seems that the power is not bad. I have been nourishing this long spear for the past few years. However, there is still one last step left. Now, thanks to your help, the thunder spear has been completed. Yi Shiwen grinned. The thunder spear in his hand was naturally refined with the horn of the giant thunder beast as the core. The giant thunder beast was born to be the king of controlling thunder and lightning. It was also known as the god of thunder. For the giant thunder beast, the essence of its entire body was also concentrated in the thunder horn of the giant thunder beast. With this as the core, he managed to forge the lightning spear. All these years, he had been nourishing it with the power of lightning in his tempest wings. With just one final step, he had borrowed the power of the Flying Cloud Castle's second elder to complete the forging. Although the giant thunder beast was born to be the king of controlling thunder and lightning, the giant thunder beast back then was much weaker than the current second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. His understanding of the power of thunder was also weaker. He understood at a glance that the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle in front of him was not weak. He was at the peak of the myth realm and was only half a step away from entering the Tao validation realm. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He didn't expect that not only did he fail to injure Yi Shiwen, but Yi Shiwen even took advantage of this opportunity to refine a powerful pseudo-divine tool. Moreover, Yi Shiwen even used this thunder spear to kill a master of the Powong realm 9th level right in front of him. Everyone finally reacted at this time. Killing an expert at the 9th level of the Powong realm in one move was much more tyrannical than half a year ago. F***CKME. Is this young Master Death Seeker even human? He is so strong. Compared to 2 years ago, he is many times more tyrannical. 2 years ago, it seemed like he would have to spend some effort to fight. Now it seems like it is almost effortless. Fortunately, we did not surrender. Otherwise, we would be on the wrong side now. Many people of the Sky-Bearing Castle were very glad that they did not choose the wrong side. Otherwise, they would really be crying at this time. Good. Just because of this sentence, I will let you die without a burial place. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. A terrifying power was surging all over his body. A powerful force instantly swept out and turned into monstrous thunder. It swept out like an ocean. Stupid, you still don't know how strong I am. Chapter 2181. Hearing this, the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle went completely crazy. He felt as if Yi Shiwen had casually forced him into a dead end. Normally, a powerhouse like him would not be affected by any stimulation. However, Yi Shiwen's display of strength was too shocking. A master of Powong Realm 9th level did not even have the strength to fight back. It could be said that he was killed in an instant. Good. Ever since I became a mythological realm expert, I have never seen someone as arrogant as you. Don't think that you are something great just because you have some strength. Today, I have met someone even more arrogant than you. Young Master Deadly. I want to see whose life you're going to take and how capable you are. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was completely enraged. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "What's the matter? What nonsense do you want? If you dare to fight, then fight. I will take the life of anyone who stands in my way. It's that simple." Boom! In an instant, heaven and earth seemed to have collapsed. The power of thunder in the body of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle rushed out. Then, in an instant, he blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Countless power of thunder condensed all of a sudden like countless thunder dragons, and then pounced towards Yi Shiwen. Who do you think you are? Just by yourself? Yi Shiwen sneered. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and then directly transformed into the power of the red dust and blasted out. The power of the red dust rolled up like ribbons, dancing in the air. Yi Shiwen was the only venerable emperor in the world, the venerable emperor of the human race. This was the human Tao fist. Originally, he had to be careful to avoid being discovered by Yao Shengqing and Jing Tianlei. But now he was no longer afraid. Unless a Tao-confirming expert appeared, they would not be able to cause any harm to him. The power of thunder transformed into the thunder algae and was instantly smashed by Yi Shiwen's terrifying fist power. Then, Yi Shiwen's fist carried the power of the mortal world and directly blasted towards the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle with irresistible force. Bang! The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle conjured a big lightning hand at the critical moment. He grabbed it and blocked Yi Shiwen's punch. Countless forces were strangling each other. This was the confrontation of the tyrannical strength that belonged to the pinnacle of the Paoang realm. In his lightning hand, countless laws of thunder condensed into talismans, constantly sweeping across the surface, and many extremely tyrannical ancient characters were also constantly appearing in it. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle indeed had peerless combat power, enough to sweep through the world. If he was in the sky-bearing castle, he would probably be more than qualified to be the Great Elder. Ninth Elder, be careful. That's his Luai's hand. Legend has it that when the Luai's hand is cultivated to the extreme, it's equivalent to the Thunder God's hand. Each and every one of his moves possesses great power. You must be careful. The old butler couldn't help but remind Yi Shiwen. At this time, seeing that Yi Shiwen's offensive was actually blocked, he couldn't help but feel anxious in his heart. All of their hopes were pinned on Yi Shiwen. After all, if it wasn't for Yi Shiwen, it was almost inevitable that they would all be killed. One must know that the Flying Cloud Castle, which had lost a Paoang 9th level expert, would probably not let these guys stay. They were already extremely angry. How powerful is the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle? Legend has it that he has cultivated to the true pinnacle. Even the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle could only truly suppress him with the help of a defective divine tool. Otherwise, it's hard to say who could become the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. But our 9th elder isn't simple either. We've seen quite a number of experts at the 9th heaven of the Paoang realm killed. I've never seen or heard of such strength. Many people were suddenly in a dilemma. Whether it was the people of the sky-bearing castle or the Flying Cloud Castle, it seemed that at this time, no one had the confidence to win. Deadly child, I think you're just as so. At this time, the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly felt confident after blocking Yi Shiwen's punch. In his heart, he thought that he had already figured out Yi Shiwen's strength. Since Yi Shiwen couldn't do anything to him, he naturally felt relieved. In his thunder lock hand, countless thunder laws were wandering, constantly erupting with amazing power. A powerful torrent blasted towards Yi Shiwen. This is your so-called thunder lock hand? I don't think it's that great. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer. Suddenly, he directly grabbed the thunder spear with his other hand and suddenly stabbed it fiercely into the thunder lock hand. Boom! A huge hole was blasted in the hand of Luai's all of a sudden, and a terrifying energy storm was constantly surging in this huge hand of Luai's, wreaking havoc. In just an instant, the thunder lock hand that the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was proud of was broken by Yi Shiwen. The thunder spear could even match the power of some defective divine tools. In fact, whether it was a pseudo-divine tool or a defective divine tool, it was still a divine tool. Even the materials used to refine some pseudo-divine tools were even better than many divine tools. However, the reason why they could only be regarded as pseudo-divine tools was that they had not been tempered by the laws of the real gods. Only the real gods could engrave the traces of their own way on the pseudo-divine tools, interweave the truth, and then promote the pseudo-divine tool to a divine tool. This was the common method used by many people. The thunder spear used the thunder horn of the thunder behemoth. At that time, even Yi Shiwen couldn't directly interrupt it. He just pulled it out from the head of the thunder behemoth. One could imagine how hard and powerful it was. This strike pierced through the heavens and earth, causing an endless amount of energy to spread out. An incomparably powerful force started wreaking havoc in the void. The second elder of the flying cloud castle only felt his whole body trembling. It could be said that his arm was almost paralyzed. He knew that this was caused by the power of thunder contained in the thunder spear. This was a situation that had never happened before. He himself had a very deep understanding of the power of thunder laws. It could be said that his understanding of the way of thunder had reached a shocking level. Before this, he had never really been hurt by thunder. From this, one could imagine how tyrannical the thunder spear was. "Oof, my thunderlock hand can't be so easily dealt with," he roared. Suddenly, he blasted out countless thunder power. Under his control, a lot of thunder power condensed into an incomparably powerful force. Then, it directly turned into countless long rivers of talismans. In an instant, it eliminated the power of Yi Shiwen's fist. Then, like a wave, it swallowed Yi Shiwen's thunder spear. Yi Shiwen seemed to be shocked. He suddenly let go of the thunder spear and jumped away. The second elder of the flying cloud castle took advantage of this opportunity to burst out an incomparably powerful attack. He directly blasted out a torrent of thunder. "Take this, Nine Heavens Thunderclap!" At this moment, in the world, Wushu's power of thunder was mobilized along with the qi in his body. It formed a huge rotating thunder vortex. During the whole process, his whole body seemed to be integrated into the thunder. It was extremely mysterious. This was an ancient inheritance that he had obtained. This set of martial arts indeed had earth-shattering power. Countless thunder laws were blasted out all at once, forming a vast, long river. A few years of space, it directly fell towards Yi Shiwen. It wanted to scratch Yi Shiwen to death. "Ha ha! Yi Shiwen is going to die now." The people of the Flying Cloud Castle finally revealed a savage smile on their faces. They had been waiting for this day. Yi Shiwen would not be able to survive this time. If he wants to go against the second elder, his strength is still far from enough. However, his strength is so strong. He must have had a fortuitous encounter. If we can get our hands on him, our strength will undoubtedly increase greatly. At this time, on the side of the Flying Cloud Castle, the eyes of the remaining 3 masters of the Paong realm at the 9th level flashed brightly. No one could really ignore Yi Shiwen's strong performance. With the cultivation of the Paong realm at the 7th level, he could actually burst out such amazing combat power. This in itself had already explained everything. At this moment, everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was going to lose. It turns out that you were just so. I was just going easy on you just now. I wanted to see what other tricks you could play. Now it seems that you are just so. I'm really disappointed." Yi Shiwen sneered. He did not have the slightest look of frustration. As he spoke, the power of the 5 elements suddenly condensed on Yi Shiwen's body, forming an incomparably huge 5 elements formation. The 5 Emperor's battle armor appeared from Yi Shiwen's body. Boom! Yi Shiwen's strength instantly skyrocketed to another level, completely reaching the combat power of the peak of the Myth realm. This power of the 5 elements, the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, suddenly thought of something. "You are not the deadly child. You are Yi Shiwen. You are actually the wanted Yi Shiwen." He suddenly remembered that someone came from the deity Abyss and asked them to find a person named Yi Shiwen. And this person had a martial technique that could drive the power of the 5 elements. He was wondering why there was suddenly such a master nearby, but it turned out to be the wanted Yi Shiwen. "Ah, yes, it is me. But wanted? With the strength of Yao Xingqing and the others, they are not qualified to put me on the wanted list." Yi Shiwen laughed loudly and directly changed back to his original form. He no longer had the intention to hide. "Even if they don't come looking for me, I will go looking for them." Chapter 2182. In the beginning, Yi Shiwen was indeed afraid of them, so he had to hide his identity. However, there was no need to do so now. He even wanted to find Yao Xingqing and the others in the blood prison and kill them to completely eliminate any future troubles. It was just that Yao Xingqing and the others had profound skills. They were all cultivating in the depths of the blood prison. Compared to the sky-bearing castle and the flying cloud castle, it was closer to the center of the blood prison. There were more threats there. It could be said that there were unimaginably powerful existences operating there. If one did not have the strength of the Pawang realm 9th level, he could only be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. The old butler was stunned. He also realized that Yao Xingqing's arrest warrant was not only sent to the Flying Cloud Castle, but also to the Sky-Bearing Castle. The Sky-Bearing Castle was also paying attention to Yi Shiwen. Although Yao Xingqing was only at the Pawang realm 9th level, he was actually different from them. Yao Xingqing had cultivated to the peak of the Pawang realm 9th level at a young age, and he was still in the stage of cultivating in the deity transformation abyss. There was a great possibility that he could enter the Dao validation in the future. The benefits of befriending such a future Dao, confirming expert, could be imagined for their future. It was just that the wanted order had been issued for a few years, but there were no clues. They didn't know where Yi Shiwen had gone. Therefore, everyone's enthusiasm gradually disappeared. However, they never expected that Yi Shiwen would end up hiding here in the end. Hiding here, no one thought that if Yi Shiwen didn't want to hide now, no one would be able to find him. During this time, when Yi Shiwen was hiding as the deadly young master, the martial arts he displayed were not the slightest bit similar to the legendary Yi Shiwen. This was why no one suspected Yi Shiwen even though he was a newcomer. Judging from the various martial arts that he had displayed, he was not any worse than the legendary Yi Shiwen. Naturally, it should be impossible for him to be the legendary Yi Shiwen. However, he did not expect that this seemingly impossible person turned out to be Yi Shiwen. However, such a dilemma only lasted for a moment. Although the deadly young master was Yi Shiwen was still their 9th elder. It was true that Yao Xingqing was powerful. According to the legends, it was difficult to find a worthy opponent among the mythical peak experts. However, was Yi Shiwen inferior? Slaughtering the mythical peak was as easy as slaughtering chickens and dogs. Moreover, a battle of this level wasn't something they could intervene in. The wisest thing for them to do was to stay out of it. While they were lost in their thoughts, Yi Shiwen had already made his move. Since he had already restored his identity, there was nothing to worry about. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched directly. Human Dao Fist. Boom! Under Yi Shiwen's control, the human Dao Fist transformed into a surging mortal world. All the power condensed together as if countless people were speaking at the same time. The surging mortal world was condensed from the thoughts of these countless people. In an instant, this terrifying thought accompanied by a powerful fist force directly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. In a sense, these worldly wills were even more dreadful than Yi Shiwen's terrifying fist power. They had affected the divine thoughts of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was trembling all over. He was affected by Yi Shiwen's human Dao Fist and couldn't suppress it at all. At this moment, he also felt a huge threat. Ever since he entered the Pawang Peak realm, he hadn't felt threatened by others for many years. However, he felt such a terrifying threat from Yi Shiwen again. Yi Shiwen, you're dead. How dare you show up here? Do you know how long Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei have been searching for you? It won't be long before they all come together. When that time comes, it will be your death. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suppressed his trembling body and roared loudly. If they dare to come, then I'll kill them all. Yi Shiwen laughed strangely and didn't care at all. In front of Yi Shiwen, the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle went completely crazy. He displayed the hand of Thundermarsh. Countless thunderbolts began to burn crazily. Then, they turned into countless laws and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Boom! His hand of Luai's directly attracted the clouds between heaven and earth and condensed them into layers of clouds. In an instant, countless crackling sounds were guided down by him and strengthened the hand of Luai's. He stood in the center of these countless thunderbolts like a powerful thunder god. Everything would be swept away by the thunderbolts. Boom! The two sides collided again. Yi Shiwen actually couldn't do anything to the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, who had already burned his own life force. The second elder of the flying cloud castle, who was forced to a corner, began to burn his own life force. He also knew that Yi Shiwen wouldn't let them go easily. If he couldn't defeat Yi Shiwen, they would also die. At this time, he couldn't care so much anymore. You do have some skills, but this is the end. Do you think it's so easy to swallow my things? Come out. Yi Shiwen grabbed the void with his big hand. In the void, there was a violent fluctuation. All of a sudden, the right hand of the second elder of the flying cloud castle seemed to be swept up by countless forces from within. In an instant, it directly exploded. Inside, the spear of thunder flew out and instantly flew back into Yi Shiwen's hand. You, the second elder of the flying cloud castle, was severely injured in an instant. His face was extremely ugly. At this time, how could he not understand that snatching the spear of thunder from before should be Yi Shiwen's scheme? He was originally very excited, thinking that he could snatch a powerful pseudo-divine tool. This was not easy to obtain. Every powerful pseudo-divine tool had the qualification to be promoted to a divine tool. It's time to end this. I want to see what kind of conspiracy the Flying Cloud Castle has prepared. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and directly integrated with the fist incarnation. His strength suddenly increased by another level. Seeing that Yi Shiwen's strength had increased by another level, everyone in the Flying Cloud Fortress was in despair. Yi Shiwen was already so difficult to deal with now. If he merged with another martial arts incarnation, it was simply unimaginable how tyrannical his strength would be. Go, let's join forces. If we don't join forces, I'm afraid none of us will be able to leave today. The remaining 3 experts at the peak of the myth realm said fiercely. At this time, they had no other choice. Join forces? Have you won? Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. Suddenly, he attacked in an instant. The void was suddenly torn by him. A fist blasted out from the void. There was no smoke or fire. There was not even the slightest sign. The fist directly hit the chest of the expert at the peak of the myth realm. Ah! This expert at the peak of the myth realm did not even have time to scream. He was directly blown up by Yi Shiwen's fist. His flesh and blood were all grabbed by Yi Shiwen. At this time, everyone only reacted. They did not know when Yi Shiwen attacked again. Moreover, his speed was faster than before. It was extremely fast. He did not give them any chance to react at all. Damn it, I'll kill you. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle saw that another person had been killed in front of him. He immediately went crazy. He drove countless thunder dragons across the vast sky and pounced towards Yi Shiwen fiercely. Yi Shiwen didn't know what to do. You talk too much. Yi Shiwen did not even look at him. He suddenly grabbed with one hand and turned it into a big golden hand. Then, it condensed into a claw. Soul-crushing blood claw. 5 bloody cracks grew bigger and bigger. It directly hit the body of the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. Ripped. His body was torn into strips like a piece of cloth. Blood splashed out and bone fragments swirled in the air. He was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. Before Yi Shiwen's combat power reached its peak, he could still fight with Yi Shiwen. However, after fusing with the martial arts incarnation, Yi Shiwen's strength had already reached another peak. It was no longer the same as before. After the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was killed by Yi Shiwen, the remaining 2 masters of the Paong realm finally felt fear. They looked at Yi Shiwen in front of them with fear in their eyes. It was as if they were looking at a monster. He was not a human at all, but a legendary monster. They finally understood that they could not fight against the person in front of them. Almost immediately, they reacted and fled in all directions. The reason why they fled in all directions was because when the tree fell, the monkeys would scatter. They were not the only ones who fled. The ordinary myth elites also screamed in pain and fled. But how could Yi Shiwen let them escape? Shaking mountain seal, inverting the sea seal, overturning the sky seal. 3 seals in one. He quickly clenched his fist and discovered that the power of countless laws in the void began to revolve. In an instant, 3 terrifying seals were condensed. These 3 incomparably powerful seals fused together in an instant, displaying a terrifying might that completely shattered the vault of the sky. Crash! The three seals and one fell completely. It was as if an incomparably huge mountain had crushed down. It was so huge that it covered the entire mountain. Boom! Although these people escaped very quickly, how could they compare with Yi Shiwen's speed? Almost without any suspense, they were crushed by Yi Shiwen's three seals in one. At this time, the masters of the sky-bearing castle were completely dumbfounded. They seemed to have become completely numb. They watched helplessly as Yi Shiwen completely slaughtered these top masters. There was a bit of fear in their eyes as they looked at Yi Shiwen. But Yi Shiwen did not care about what they were thinking. He looked directly at the old butler and said, "Up until now, the sky-bearing castle has not arrived for a long time. It seems that something has happened. Let's go. Let's go back immediately." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.